Section 27 of Pamela, or Virtue Rewarded. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Pamela, or Virtue Rewarded by Samuel Richardson. Section 27. The greatest part of the company having sat down to loo, my master being pressed, said he would take one game at whist, but had rather be excused too, having been up all night. And I asked how his friend did. We'll talk of that, said he, another time, which, and his seriousness, made me fear the poor gentleman was dead, as it proved. We cast in, and Miss Burrows and my master were together, and Mr. Perry and I had all 4 honours the first time, and we were up at one deal. Said my master, An honourable hand, Pamela, should go with an honourable heart, but you'd not have been up, if a knave had not been one. Whist, sir, said Mr. Perry, you know, was a court game originally, and the knave, I suppose, signified always the prime minister. 'Tis well, said my master, if now there is but one knave in a court, out of 4 persons, take the court through. The king and queen, sir, said Mr. Perry, can do no wrong, you know. So there are 2 that must be good out of 4, and the ace seems too plain a card to mean much hurt. We compliment the king, said my master, in that manner, and 'tis well to do so, because there is something sacred in the character. But yet if force of example be considered, it is going a great way, for certainly a good master makes a good servant, generally speaking. One thing, added he, I will say in regard to the ace. I have always looked upon that plain and honest looking card in the light you do, and have considered whist as an English game in its original, which has made me fonder of it than any other. For by the ace I have always thought the laws of the land denoted, and as the ace is above the king or queen, and wins them, I think the law should be thought so too, though maybe I shall be deemed a Whig for my opinion. I shall never play whist, said Mr. Perry, without thinking of this, and shall love the game the better for the thought, though I am no party man. Nor I, said my master, for I think the distinctions of Whig and Tory odious, and love the one or the other, only as they are honest and worthy men, and have never, nor never shall hope, given a vote but according to what I thought was for the public good, let either Whig or Tory propose it. I wish, sir, replied Mr. Perry, all gentlemen in your station would act so. If there was no undue influence, said my master, I am willing to think so well of all mankind, that I believe they generally would. But you see, said he, by my Pamela's hand, when all the court cards get together, and are acted by one mind, the game is usually turned accordingly, though now and then, too, it may be so circumstanced that honours will do them no good, and they are forced to depend altogether upon tricks. I thought this way of talking prettier than the game itself, but I said, though I have won the game, I hope I am no trickster. No, said my master, God forbid but court cards should sometimes win with honour. But you see, for all that, your game is as much owing to the knave as the king, and you, my fair one, lost no advantage when it was put into your power. Else, sir, said I should not have done justice to my partner. You are certainly right, Pamela, replied he, though you thereby beat your husband. Sir, said I, you may be my partner next, and I must do justice, you know. Well, said he, always choose so worthy a friend as chance has given you for a partner, and I shall never find fault with you, do what you will. Mr. Perry said, You are very good to me, sir. And Miss Burrows, I observed, seemed pleased with the compliment to her humble servant, by which I saw she esteemed him as he appeared to deserve. Dear sir, said I, how much better is this than to be locked in by Lady Davers? The supper was brought in sooner on my account, because I had had no dinner, and there passed very agreeable compliments on the occasion. Lady Darnford would help me first, because I had so long fasted, as she said. Sir Simon would have placed himself next me, and my master said, he thought it was best, where there was an equal number of ladies and gentlemen, that they should sit intermingled, that the gentlemen might be employed in helping and serving the ladies. Lady Darnford said, she hoped Sir Simon would not sit above any ladies at his own table especially. Well, said he, I shall sit over against her, however, and that's as well. My dearest sir could not keep his eyes off me, and seemed generously delighted with all I did and all I said, and every one was pleased to see his kind and affectionate behaviour to me. Lady Jones brought up the discourse about Lady Davers again, and my master said, I fear, Pamela, you have been hardly used, more than you'll say. I know my sister's passionate temper too well to believe she could be over civil to you, especially as it happened so unluckily that I was out. If, added he, she had no pique to you, my dear, yet what has passed between her and me has so exasperated her, that I know she would have quarrelled with my horse if she had thought I valued it, and nobody else was in her way. Dear sir, said I, don't say so of good Lady Davers. Why, my dear, said he, I know she came on purpose to quarrel, and had she not found herself under a very violent uneasiness after what had passed between us, and my treatment of her lord's letter, she would not have offered to come near me. What sort of language had she for me, Pamela? Oh, sir, very good, only her well-mannered brother, and such as that. Only, said he, 'tis taking up the attention of the company disagreeably, or I could tell you almost every word she said. Lady Jones wished to hear a further account of my lady's conduct, and most of the company joined with her, particularly Mrs. Peters, who said, that as they knew the story, and Lady Davers' temper, though she was very good in the main, they could wish to be so agreeably entertained, if he and I pleased, because they imagined I should have no difficulties after this. Tell me then, Pamela, said he, did she lift up her hand at you? Did she strike you? But I hope not. A little slap of the hand, said I, or so. Insolent woman! She did not, I hope, offer to strike your face. Why, said I was a little saucy once or twice, and she would have given me a cuff on the ear if her woman and Mrs. Jewkes had not interposed. Why did you not come out at the door? Because, said I, her ladyship sat in the chair against it, one while, and another while locked it, else I offered several times to get away. She knew I expected you here. You say you showed her my letter to you? Yes, sir, said I, but I had better not, for she as then more exasperated, and made strange comments upon it. I doubt it not, said he, but did she not see by the kind epithets in it that there was no room to doubt of our being married? Oh, sir, replied I, and made the company smile. She said, for that very reason she was sure I was not married. That's like my sister, said he, exactly like her, and yet she lives very happily herself, for her poor lord never contradicts her. Indeed he dares not. You were a great many wenches, were you not, my dear? For that's a great word with her. Yes, sir, said I, wenches and creatures out of number, and worse than all that. What? Tell me, my dear. Sir, said I must not have you angry with Lady Davers. While you are so good to me, 'tis all nothing. Only the trouble I have, that I cannot be suffered to show how much I honoured her ladyship as your sister. Well, said he, you need not be afraid to tell me. I must love her after all, though I shall not be pleased with her on this occasion. I know it is her love for me, though thus oddly expressed, that makes her so uneasy. And after all, she comes, I'm sure, to be reconciled to me, though it must be through a good hearty quarrel first. For she can show a good deal of sunshine, but it must be always after a storm. And I'll love her dearly, if she has not been, and will not be, too hard upon my dearest. Mr. Peters said, Sir, you are very good and very kind. I love to see this complaisance to your sister, though she be in fault, so long as you can show it with so much justice to the sweetest innocence and merit in the world. By all that's good, Mr. Peters, said he, I'd present my sister with 1,000 pounds, if she would kindly take my dear Pamela by the hand, and wish her joy, and call her sister, and yet I should be unworthy of the dear creature that smiles upon me there, if it was not principally for her sake, and the pleasure it would give her, that I say this; for I will never be thoroughly reconciled to my sister till she does. For I most sincerely think, as to myself, that my dear wife, there she sits, does me more honour in her new relation than she receives from me. Sir, said I am overwhelmed with your goodness. And my eyes were filled with tears of joy and gratitude. And all the company with one voice blessed him. And Lady Jones was pleased to say, the behaviour of you two happy ones to each other is the most edifying I ever knew. I am always improved when I see you. How happy would every good lady be with such a gentleman, and every good gentleman with such a lady! In short, you seem made for one another. O madam, said I, you are so kind, so good to me, that I know not how to thank you enough. Said she, you deserve more than I can express, for, to all that know your story, you are a matchless person. You are an ornament to our sex. And your virtue, though Mr. B. is so generous as he is, has met with no more than its due reward. God long bless you together. You are, said my dearest sir, very good to me, madam, I am sure. I have taken liberties in my former life that deserved not so much excellence. I have offended extremely by trials glorious to my Pamela, but disgraceful to me, against a virtue that I now consider as almost sacred, and I shall not think I deserve her till I can bring my manners, my sentiments, and my actions to a conformity with her own. In short, my Pamela, continued he, I want you to be nothing but what you are, and have been. You cannot be better, and if you could, it would be but filling me with despair to attain the awful heights of virtue at which you have arrived. Perhaps, added the dear gentleman, the scene I have beheld within these 12 hours has made me more serious than otherwise I should have been. But I'll assure you, before all this good company, I speak the sentiments of my heart, and those not of this day only. What a happy daughter is yours, O dear father and mother! I owe it all to God's grace, and to yours and my good lady's instructions; and to these let me always look back with grateful acknowledgments, that I may not impute to myself, and be proud, my inexpressible happiness. The company were so kindly pleased with our concern, and my dear master's goodness, that he, observing their indulgence, and being himself curious to know the further particulars of what had passed between my lady and me, repeated his question, what she had called me besides wench and creature? And I said, my lady, supposing I was wicked, lamented over me very kindly my depravity and fall, and said, what 1,000 pities it was, so much virtue, as she was pleased to say, was so destroyed, and that I had yielded after so noble a stand, as she said. Excuse me, gentlemen and ladies, said I, you know my story. It seems, and I am commanded by one who has a title to all my obedience, to proceed. They gave all of them bows of approbation, that they might not interrupt me, and I continued my story, the men servants withdrawing at a motion of Mr. B. on my looking towards them, and then, at Lady Darnford's coming in, I proceeded. I told her ladyship that I was still innocent, and would be so, and it was injurious to suppose me otherwise. Why, tell me, wench, said she. But I think I must not tell you what she said. Yes, do, said my master, to clear my sister. We shall think it very bad else. I held my hand before my face. Why, she said, tell me, wench, hast thou not been, hesitating, a very free creature with thy master? That she said, or to that effect. And when I said, she asked strange questions, and in strange words. She ridiculed my delicacy, as she called it, and said, my niceness would not last long. She said, I must know I was not really married, that my ring was only a sham, and all was my cunning to cloak my yielding, and get better terms. She said she knew the world as much at 32 as I did at 16, and bid me remember that. I took the liberty to say, but I got a good way off, that I scorned her ladyship's words, and was as much married as her ladyship; and then I had certainly been cuffed, if her woman had not interposed, and told her I was not worthy her anger, and that I was as much to be pitied for my credulity as despised for my vanity. My poor Pamela, said my master, this was too hard upon you. O sir, said I, how much easier it was to me than if it had been so. That would have broken my heart quite, for then I should have deserved it all, and worse, and these reproaches added to my own guilt would have made me truly wretched. Lady Darnford, at whose right hand I sat, kissed me with a kind of rapture, and called me a sweet exemplar for all my sex. Mr. Peters said very handsome things. So did Mr. Perry, and Sir Simon, with tears in his eyes, said to my master, Why, neighbour, this is excellent, by my troth. I believe there is something in virtue that we had not well considered. On my soul, there has been but one angel come down for these 1,000 years, and you have got her. Well, my dearest, said my master, pray proceed with your story until we have done supper, since the ladies seem pleased with it. Why, sir, said I, her ladyship went on in the same manner, but said one time, and held me by the hand, she would give me 100 guineas for one provoking word, or if I would but say I believed myself married, that she might fell me at her foot. But, sir, you must not be angry with her ladyship. She called me painted dirt, baby-face, waiting-maid, beggar's brat, and beggar-born. But I said, as long as I knew my innocence, I was easy in everything, but to have my dear parents abused. They were never beggars, nor beholden to anybody, nor to anything but God's grace and their own labour. That they once lived on credit, that misfortunes might befall anybody, and that I could not bear they should be treated so undeservedly. Then her ladyship said, she supposed my master's folly would make us set up for a family, and that the herald's office would shortly be searched to make it out. Exactly my sister again, said he. So you could not please her any way? No, indeed, sir. When she commanded me to fill her a glass of wine, and would not let her woman do it, she asked if I was above it. I then said, if to attend your ladyship at table, or even kneel at your feet, was required of me, I would most gladly do it, were I only the person you think me. But if it be to triumph over one who has received honours which she thinks require from her another part, that she may not be utterly unworthy of them, I must say I cannot do it. This quite astonished her ladyship, and a little before her kinsman brought me the bottle and glass, and required me to fill it for my lady at her command, and called himself my deputy, and I said, 'Tis in a good hand, help my lady yourself. So, sir, added I, you see I could be a little saucy upon occasion. You please me well, my Pamela, said he. This was quite right, but proceed. Her ladyship said, she was astonished, adding, she supposed I would have her look upon me as her brother's wife, and asked me, what in the name of impudence possessed me to dare to look upon myself as her sister? And I said, that was a question better became her most worthy brother to answer than me. And then I thought I should have had her ladyship upon me, but her woman interposed. I afterwards told Mrs. Jewkes at the window, that since I was hindered from going to you, I believed it was best to let Robert go with the chariot, and say Lady Davers was come, and I could not leave her ladyship. But this did not please, and I thought it would too, for she said, No, he'll think I made the creature my companion, and know not how to part with her. Exactly, said he, my sister again. And she said, I knew nothing what belonged to people of condition. How should I? What shall I say, madam? Said I. Nothing at all, answered she. Let him expect his dearest love, alluding to your kind epithet in your letter, and be disappointed. It is but adding a few more hours to this heavy absence, and every one will become a day in his amorous account. So, to be short, I saw nothing was to be done, and I feared, sir, you would wonder at my stay and be angry, and I watched my opportunity, till my lady, who was walking about the room, was at the further end, and the parlour, being a ground floor in a manner, I jumped out at the window, and ran for it. Her ladyship called after me, so did her woman, and I heard her say I flew like a bird, and she called 2 of her servants in sight to stop me. But I said, Touch me at your peril, fellows. And Mr. Colbrand, having been planted at hand by Mrs. Jewkes, who was very good in the whole affair, and incurred her ladyship's displeasure once or twice by taking my part, seeing how I was used, put on a fierce look, cocked his hat with one hand, and put t'other on his sword, and said, he would chine the man who offered to touch his lady. And so he ran alongside of me, and could hardly keep pace with me. And here, my dear sir, concluded I am, at yours and the good company's service. They seemed highly pleased with my relation, and my master said he was glad Mrs. Jewkes behaved so well, as also Mr. Colbrand. Yes, sir, said I. When Mrs. Jewkes interposed once, her ladyship said, it was hard she, who was born in that house, could not have some privilege in it without being talked to by the saucy servants. And she called her another time fat face, and womaned her most violently. Well, said my master, I am glad, my dear, you have had such an escape. My sister was always passionate, as Mrs. Peters knows, and my poor mother had enough to do with us both, for we neither of us wanted spirit, and when I was a boy, I never came home from school or college for a few days, but though we longed to see one another before, yet ere the first day was over we had a quarrel, for she, being 7 years older than I, was always for domineering over me, and I could not bear it. And I used on her frequently quarrelling with the maids, and being always at a word and a blow, to call her Captain Bab, for her name is Barbara. And when my Lord Davers courted her, my poor mother has made up quarrels between them 3 times in a day, and I used to tell her, she would certainly beat her husband, marry whom she would, if he did not beat her first, and break her spirit. Yet has she, continued he, very good qualities. She was a dutiful daughter, is a good wife, she is bountiful to her servants, firm in her friendships, charitable to the poor, and, I believe, never any sister better loved a brother than she me, and yet she always loved to vex and tease me, and as I would bear a resentment longer than she'd be one moment the most provoking creature in the world, and the next would do anything to be forgiven. And I have made her, when she was the aggressor, follow me all over the house and garden, to be upon good terms with me. But this case piques her more, because she had found out a match for me in the family of a person of quality, and had set her heart upon bringing it to effect, and had even proceeded far in it without my knowledge, and brought me into the lady's company, unknowing of her design. But I was then averse to matrimony upon any terms, and was angry at her proceeding in it so far without my privity or encouragement. And she cannot for this reason bear the thoughts of my being now married, and to her mother's waiting maid too, as she reminds my dear Pamela, when I had declined her proposal with the daughter of a noble earl. This is the whole case, said he, and allowing for the pride and violence of her spirit, and that she knows not, as I do, the transcendent excellencies of my dear Pamela, and that all her view in her own conception is mine and the family honour, she is a little to be allowed for, though never fear, my Pamela, but that I, who never had a struggle with her, wherein I did not get the better, will do you justice, and myself too. This account of Lady Davers pleased everybody, and was far from being to her ladyship's disadvantage in the main, and I would do anything in the world to have the honour to be in her good graces. Yet I fear it will not be easily, if at all, effected. But I will proceed. After supper nothing would serve Miss Darnford and Miss Burrows but we must have a dance, and Mr. Peters, who plays a good fiddle, urged it forward. My dear master, though in a riding dress, took out Miss Burrows. Sir Simon, for a man of his years, danced well, and took me out, but put on one of his free jokes, that I was fitter to dance with a younger man, and he would have it, though I had not danced since my dear lady's death, to signify except once or twice to please Mrs. Jarvis, and indeed believed all my dancing days over, that as my master and I were the best dancers, we should dance once together before folks, as the odd gentleman said, and my dear sir was pleased to oblige him, and afterwards danced with Miss Darnford, who has much more skill and judgment than I, though they compliment me with an easier shape and air. We left the company with great difficulty at about 11, my dear master having been up all night before, and we being at the greatest distance from home, though they seemed inclinable not to break up so soon, as they were neighbours, and the ladies said they longed to hear what would be the end of Lady Davers's interview with her brother. My master said he feared we must not now think of going next day to Bedfordshire, as we had intended, and perhaps might see them again, and so we took leave and set out for home, where we arrived not till 12 o'clock, and found Lady Davers had gone to bed about 11, wanting sadly that we should come home first, but so did not I. Mrs. Jewkes told us that my lady was sadly fretted that I had got away so, and seemed a little apprehensive of what I would say of the usage I had received from her. She asked Mrs. Jewkes if she thought I was really married, and Mrs. Jewkes telling her yes, she fell into a passion, and said, Begone, bold woman, I cannot bear thee. See not my face till I send for thee. Thou hast been very impudent to me once or twice to-day already, and art now worse than ever. She said she would not have told her ladyship if she had not asked her, and was sorry she had offended. She sent for her at supper time. Said she, I have another question to ask thee, woman, and tell me yes, if thou darest. Was ever any thing so odd? Why then, said Mrs. Jewkes, I will say no, before your ladyship speaks. My master laughed. Poor woman, said he. She called her insolent and assurance, and said, Begone, bold woman, as thou art. But come hither. Dost thou know if that young harlot is to be with my brother to-night? She said she knew not what to answer, because she had threatened her if she said yes. But at last my lady said, I will know the bottom of this iniquity. I suppose they won't have so much impudence to be together while I'm in the house, but I dare say they have been bedfellows. Said she, I will lie to-night in the room I was born in, so get that bed ready. That room being our bedchamber, Mrs. Jewkes, after some hesitation, replied, Madam, my master lies there, and has the key. I believe, woman, said she, thou tellest me a story. Indeed, madam, said she, he does, and has some papers there he will let nobody see, for Mrs. Jewkes said she feared she would beat her if she went up, and found by my clothes and some of my master's how it was. So, she said, I will then lie in the best room, as it is called, and Jackey shall lie in the little green room adjoining to it. Has thy master got the keys of those? No, madam, said Mrs. Jewkes. I will order them to be made ready for your ladyship. And where dost thou lay thy pursy sides? Said she. Up 2 pairs of stairs, madam, next the garden. And where lies the young harlotry? Continued she. Sometimes with me, madam, said she, and sometimes with thy virtuous master, I suppose, said my lady. Ha, woman, what sayest thou? I must not speak, said Mrs. Jewkes. Well, thou mayest go, said she, but thou hast the air of a secret keeper of that sort. I dare say thou'll set the good work forward most cordially. Poor Mrs. Jewkes, said my master, and laughed most heartily. This talk we had whilst we were undressing. So she and her woman lay together in the room my master lay in before I was happy. I said, Dearest sir, pray in the morning let me lock myself up in the closet as soon as you rise, and not be called down for ever so much, for I am afraid to see her ladyship, and I will employ myself about my journal, while these things are in my head. Don't be afraid, my dear, said he. Am not I with you? Mrs. Jewkes pitied me for what I had undergone in the day, and I said, We won't make the worst of it to my dear master, because we won't exasperate where we would reconcile. But, added I am much obliged to you, Mrs. Jewkes, and I thank you. Said my master, I hope she did not beat your lady, Mrs. Jewkes. Not much, sir, said she; but I believe I saved my lady once. Yet, added she, I was most vexed at the young lord. Ay, Mrs. Jewkes, said my master, let me know his behaviour. I can chastise him, though I cannot my sister, who is a woman. Let me therefore know what part he acted. Nothing, my dear sir, said I, but impertinence, if I may so say, and foolishness that was most provoking. But I spared him not, and so there is no room, sir, for your anger. No, sir, said Mrs. Jewkes, nothing else indeed. How was her woman? Said my master. Pretty impertinent, replied Mrs. Jewkes, as ladies' women will be. But, said I, you know she saved me once or twice. Very true, madam, returned Mrs. Jewkes. And she said to me at table, that you were a sweet creature, she never saw your equal, but that you had a spirit, and she was sorry you answered her lady so, who never bore so much contradiction before. I told her, added Mrs. Jewkes, that if I was in your ladyship's place, I should have taken much more upon me, and that you were all sweetness. And she said, I was got over, she saw. End of section 27.
Recording by Magdalena Cook. Pamela, or Virtue Rewarded, by Samuel Richardson. Section 28. Tuesday morning, the 6th of my happiness. My master had said to Mrs. Jewkes that he should not rise till 8 or 9, as he had sat up all the night before. But it seems my lady, knowing he usually rose about 6, got up soon after that hour, raised her woman and her nephew, having a whimsical scheme in her head, to try to find whether we were in bed together, and about half an hour after 6 she rapped at our chamber door. My master was waked at the noise, and asked, Who was there? Open the door, said she, open it this minute. I said, clinging about his neck, Dear, dear sir, pray, pray don't. Oh, save me, save me. Don't fear, Pamela, said he, the woman's mad, I believe. But he called out, Who are you? What do you want? You know my voice well enough, said she. I will come in. Pray, sir, said I, don't let her ladyship in. Don't be frightened, my dear, said he. She thinks we are not married, and are afraid to be found abed together. I'll let her in, but she shan't come near, my dearest. So he slipped out of bed, and putting on some of his clothes and gown and slippers, he said, What bold body dare disturb my repose thus? And opened the door. In rushed she. I'll see your wickedness, said she, I will. In vain shall you think to hide it from me. What should I hide? Said he. How dare you set a foot into my house, after the usage I have received from you? I had covered myself over head and ears, and trembled every joint. He looked, and spied her woman and kinsman in the room, she crying out, Bear witness, Jacky, bear witness. Beck, the creature is now in his bed. And not seeing the young gentleman before, who was at the feet of the bed, he said, How now, sir? What's your business in this apartment? Begone this moment. And he went away directly. Beck, said my lady, you see the creature is in his bed. I do, madam, answered she. My master came to me and said, Ay, look, Beck, and bear witness. Here is my Pamela. My dear angel, my lovely creature. Don't be afraid. Look up and see how frantically this woman of quality behaves. At that I just peeped and saw my lady, who could not bear this, coming to me, and she said, Wicked abandoned wretch! Vile brother, to brave me thus! I'll tear the creature out of bed before your face, and expose you both as you deserve. At that he took her in his arms, as if she had been nothing, and carrying her out of the room, she cried, Beck, Beck, help me, Beck! The wretch is going to fling me down the stairs. Her woman ran to him and said, Good sir, for heaven's sake, do no violence to my lady. Her ladyship has been ill all night. He sat her down in the chamber she lay in, and she could not speak for passion. Take care of your lady, said he, and when she has rendered herself more worthy of my attention, I'll see her. Till then, at her peril, and yours too, come not near my apartment. And so he came to me, and with all the sweet soothing words in the world, pacified my fears, and gave me leave to go right in my closet, as soon as my fright was over. and to stay there till things were more calm. And so he dressed himself and went out of the chamber, permitting me, at my desire, to fasten the door after him. At breakfast time my master tapped at the door, and I said, "Who's there?" "I, my dearest," said he. "Oh, then," replied I will open it with pleasure." I had written on a good deal, but I put it by, when I ran to the door. I would have locked it again when he was in, but he said, "Am not I here? Don't be afraid," said he. "Will you come down to breakfast, my love?" "Oh, no, dear sir," said I. "Be pleased to excuse me," said he. "I cannot bear the look of it, that the mistress of my house should breakfast in her closet, as if she durst not come down, and I at home." "Oh, dearest sir," replied I, "pray pass that over, for my sake, and don't let my presence aggravate your sister, for a kind punctilio." "Then, my dear," said he, "I will breakfast with you here." "No, pray, dear sir," answered I, "breakfast with your sister." "That, my dear," replied he, "will too much gratify her pride, and look like a slight to you." "Dear sir," said I, "your goodness is too great, for me to want punctilious proofs of it. Pray oblige her ladyship. She is your guest surely, sir. You may be freezed with your dutiful wife." "She is a strange woman," said he. "How I pity her! She has thrown herself into a violent fit of the colic, through passion, and is but now, her woman says, a little easier." "I hope, sir," said I, "when you carried her ladyship out, you did not hurt her." "No," replied he, "I love her too well. I sat her down in the apartment she had chosen, and she but now desires to see me, and that I will breakfast with her, or refuses to touch anything. But, if my dearest pleases, I will insist it shall be with you at the same time." "Oh, no, no, dear sir," said I should not forgive myself if I did. I would on my knees beg her ladyship's goodness to me, now I am in your presence, though I thought I ought to carry it a little stiff when you were absent, for the sake of the honour you have done me. And, dear sir, if my deepest humility will please, permit me to shew it." "You shall do nothing," returned he, "unworthy of my wife, to please the proud woman. But I will, however, permit you to breakfast by yourself this once, as I have not seen her since I have used her in so barbarous a manner, as I understand she exclaims I have, and as she will not eat anything unless I give her my company." So he saluted me, and withdrew, and I locked the door after him again for fear. Mrs. Jewkes soon after rapped at the door. "Who's there?" said I. "Only I, madam." So I opened the door. "'Tis a sad thing, madam," said she, "you should be so much afraid in your own house." She brought me some chocolate and toast, and I asked her about my lady's behaviour. She said she would not suffer any body to attend but her woman, because she would not be heard what she had to say. But she believed, she said, her master was very angry with the young lord, as she called her kinsman; for, as she passed by the door, she heard him say, in a high tone, "I hope, sir, you did not forget what belongs to the character you assume," or to that effect. About 1 o'clock my master came up again, and he said, "Will you come down to dinner, Pamela, when I send for you?" "Whatever you command, sir, I must do." "But my lady won't desire to see me." "No matter whether she will or no. But I will not suffer, that she shall prescribe her insolent will to my wife, and in your own house too. I will, by my tenderness to you, mortify her pride, and it cannot be done so well as to face her." "Dearest sir," said I, "pray indulge me, and let me dine here by myself. I will make my lady but more inveterate." Said he, "I have told her we are married. She is out of all patience about it, and yet pretends not to believe it. Upon that I tell her, then she shall have it her own way, and that I am not. And what has she to do with it either way? She has scolded and begged, commanded and prayed, blessed me and cursed me, by turns, 20 times in these few hours. And I have sometimes soothed her, sometimes raged, and at last left her, and took a turn in the garden for an hour to compose myself, because you should not see how the foolish woman has ruffled me. And just now I came out, seeing her coming in." Just as he had said so, I cried, "Oh, my lady, for I heard her voice in the chamber, saying, Brother, brother, one word with you, stopping in sight of the closet where I was. He stepped out, and she went up to the window that looks towards the garden, and said, Mean fool that I am, to follow you up and down the house in this manner, though I am shunned and avoided by you. You a brother, you a barbarian! Is it possible that we could be born of one mother? Why, said he, do you charge me with a conduct to you, that you bring upon yourself? Is it not surprising that you should take the liberty with me, that the dear mother you have named never gave you an example for to any of her relations? Was it not sufficient that I was insolently taken to task by you in your letters, but my retirements must be invaded, my house insulted, and, if I have one person dearer to me than another, that person must be singled out for an object of your violence? Ay, said she, that one person is the thing. But though I come with a resolution to be temperate, and to expostulate with you on your avoiding me so unkindly, yet cannot I have patience to look upon that bed in which I was born, and to be made the guilty scene of your wickedness with such a— Hush, said he, I charge you, call not the dear girl by any name unworthy of her. You know not, as I told you, her excellence, and I desire you'll not repeat the freedoms you have taken below. She stamped with her foot and said, God give me patience! So much contempt to a sister that loves you so well, and so much tenderness to a vile— He put his hand before her mouth. Be silent, said he. Once more, I charge you, you know not the innocence you abuse so freely. I ought not, neither will I bear it. She sat down and fanned herself, and burst into tears, and such sobs of grief, or rather passion, that grieved me to hear, and I sat and trembled sadly. He walked about the room in great anger, and at last said, Let me ask you, Lady Davers, why am I thus insolently to be called to account by you? Am I not independent? Am I not of age? Am I not at liberty to please myself? Would to God that, instead of a woman and my sister, any man breathing had dared, whatever were his relation under that of a father, to give himself half the airs you have done. Why did you not send on this accursed errand, you lord? Who could write me such a letter as no gentleman should write, nor any gentleman tamely receive? He should have seen the difference. We all know, said she, that since your Italian duel you have commenced a bravo, and all your airs breathe as strongly of the manslayer as of the libertine. This, said he, I will bear, for I have no reason to be ashamed of that duel, nor the course of it, since it was to save a friend, and because it is levelled at myself only. But suffer not your tongue to take too great a liberty with my Pamela. She interrupted him in a violent burst of passion. If I bear this, said she, I can bear anything. Oh, the little strumpet! He interrupted her then, and said wrathfully, Begone, rageful woman, begone this moment from my presence. Leave my house this instant. I renounce you, and all relation to you, and never more let me see your face, or call me brother. And took her by the hand to lead her out. She laid hold of the curtains of the window, and said, I will not go. You shall not force me from you thus ignominiously in the wretch's hearing, and suffer her to triumph over me in your barbarous treatment of me. Not considering anything, I ran out of the closet, and threw myself at my dear master's feet, as he held her hand, in order to lead her out, and I said, Dearest sir, let me beg that no act of unkindness for my sake pass between so worthy and so near relations. Dear, dear madam, said I, and clasped her knees, pardon and excuse the unhappy course of all this evil. On my knees I beg your ladyship to receive me to your grace and favour, and you shall find me incapable of any triumph but in your ladyship's goodness to me. Creature, said she, art thou to beg an excuse for me? Art thou to implore my forgiveness? Is it to thee I am to owe the favour, that I am not cast headlong from my brother's presence? Begone to thy corner, wench, begone, I say, lest thy paramour kill me for trampling thee under my foot. Rise, my dear Pamela, said my master, rise, dear life of my life, and expose not so much worthiness to the ungrateful scorn of so violent a spirit. And so he led me to my closet again, and there I sat and wept. Her woman came up, just as he had led me to my closet, and was returning to her lady, and she very humbly said, Excuse my intrusion, good sir. I hope I may come to my lady. Yes, Mrs. Warden, said he, you may come in, and pray take your lady downstairs with you, for fear I should too much forget what belongs either to my sister or myself. I began to think, seeing her ladyship so outrageous with her brother, what a happy escape I had had the day before, though hardly enough used in conscience too, as I thought. Her woman begged her ladyship to walk down, and she said, Beck, seest thou that bed? That was the bed that I was born in, and yet that was the bed thou sawest, as well as I, the wicked Pamela in, this morning, and this brother of mine just risen from her. True, said he, you both saw it, and it is my pride that you could see it. 'Tis my bridal bed, and 'tis abominable that the happiness I knew before you came hither should be so barbarously interrupted. Swear to me but, thou bold wretch, said she, swear to me that Pamela Andrews is really and truly thy lawful wife, without sham, without deceit, without double meaning, and I know what I have to say. I'll humour you for once, said he, and then swore a solemn oath that I was. And said he, did I not tell you so at first? I cannot yet believe you, said she, because in this particular I had rather have called you knave than fool. Provoke me not too much, said he, for if I should as much forget myself as you have done, you'd have no more of a brother in me than I have a sister in you. Who married you? Said she. Tell me that. Was it not a broken attorney in a parson's habit? Tell me true, in the wench's hearing. When she's undeceived, she'll know how to behave herself better. Thank God, thought I, it is not so. No, said he, and I'll tell you, that I bless God I abhorred that project before it was brought to bear, and Mr. Williams married us. Nay, then, said she, but answer me another question or two, I beseech you. Who gave her away? Parson Peters, said he. Where was the ceremony performed? In my little chapel, which you may see, as it was put in order on purpose. Now, said she, I begin to fear there is something in it. But who was present? Said she. Methinks, replied he, I look like a fine puppy, to suffer myself to be thus interrogated by an insolent sister. But, if you must know, Mrs. Jewkes was present. Oh, the procuress, said she. But nobody else? Yes, said he, all my heart and soul. Wretch, said she, and what would thy father and mother have said, had they lived to this day? Their consents, replied he, I should have thought it my duty to ask, but not yours, madam. Suppose, said she, I had married my father's groom, what would you have said to that? I could not have behaved worse, replied he, than you have done. And would you not have thought, she said, I deserved it? She said, does your pride let you see no difference in the case you put? None at all, said she. Where can the difference be between a beggar's son married by a lady, or a beggar's daughter made a gentleman's wife? Then I'll tell you, replied he, the difference is, a man ennobles the woman he takes, be she who she will, and adopts her into his own rank, be it what it will. But a woman, though ever so nobly born, debases herself by a mean marriage, and descends from her own rank to his she stoops to. When the royal family of Stuart allied itself into the low family of Hyde, comparatively low, I mean, did anybody scruple to call the lady Royal Highness and Duchess of York? And did anybody think her daughters, the late Queen Mary and Queen Anne, less royal for that? When the broken-fortuned peer goes into the city to marry a rich tradesman's daughter, be he duke or earl, does not his consort immediately become ennobled by his choice? And who scruples to call her lady, duchess, or countess? But when a duchess or countess dowager descends to mingle with a person of obscure birth, does she not then degrade herself? And is she not effectually degraded? And will any duchess or countess rank with her? Lady Davers, do you not see a difference between my marrying my dear mother's beloved and deserving waiting maid, with a million of excellencies about her, and such graces of mind and person as would adorn any distinction, and your marrying a sordid groom, whose constant train of education, conversation, and opportunities could possibly give him no other merit than that which must proceed from the vilest lowest taste in his sordid dignifier? Oh, the wretch, said she, How he finds excuses to palliate his meanness! Again, said he, let me observe to you, Lady Davers, when a duke marries a private person, is he not still her head, by virtue of being her husband? But when a lady descends to marry a groom, is not the groom her head, being her husband? And does not this difference strike you? For what lady of quality ought to respect another, who has made so sordid a choice, and set a groom above her? For would not that be to put that groom upon a par with themselves? Call this palliation, or what you will, but if you see not the difference, you are blind, and a very unfit judge for yourself, much more unfit to be a censurer of me. I'd have you, said she, publish your fine reasons to the world, and they will be sweet encouragements to all the young gentlemen who read them to cast themselves away on the servant wenches in their families. Not at all, Lady Davers, replied he, for if any young gentleman stays till he finds such a person as my Pamela, so enriched with the beauties of person and mind, and so fitted to adorn the degree she is raised to, he will stand as easily acquitted, as I shall be to all the world that sees her, except there may be many more Lady Davers than I apprehend can possibly be met with. And so, returned she, you say you are actually and really married, honestly, or rather foolishly married, to this slut? I am indeed, says he, if you presume to call her so. And why should I not, if I please? Who is there ought to contradict me? Whom have I hurt by it? Have I not an estate, free and independent? Am I likely to be beholden to you, or any of my relations? And why, when I have a sufficiency in my own single hands, should I scruple to make a woman equally happy, who has all I want? For beauty, virtue, prudence, and generosity too, I will tell you, she has more than any lady I ever saw. Yes, Lady Davers, she has all these naturally. They are born with her, and a few years' education, with her genius, has done more for her than a whole life has done for others. No more, no more, I beseech you, said she. Thou surfeitest me, honest man, with thy weak folly. Thou art worse than an idolater. Thou hast made a graven image, and thou fallest down and worshippest the works of thy own hands, and, Jeroboam-like, wouldst have everybody else bow down before thy calf. Well said, Lady Davers. Whenever your passion suffers you to descend to witticism, 'tis almost over with you. But let me tell you, though I myself worship this sweet creature, that you call such names, I want nobody else to do it, and should be glad you had not intruded upon me, to interrupt me in the course of our mutual happiness. Well said, my kind, well-mannered brother, said she. I shall, after this, very little interrupt your mutual happiness, I'll assure you. I thought you a gentleman once, and prided myself in my brother. But I say now with the burial service, ashes to ashes, and dirt to dirt. Ay, said he, Lady Davers, and there we must all end at last. You with all your pride, and I with my plentiful fortune, must come to it. And then where will be your distinction? Let me tell you, except you and I both mend our manners, though you have been no duellist, no libertine, as you call me, this amiable girl, whom your vanity and folly so much despise, will outsoar us both, infinitely outsoar us, and he who judges best will give the preference where due, without regard to birth or fortune. Egregious preacher, said she. What, my brother already turned Puritan? See what marriage and repentance may bring a man to. I heartily congratulate this change. Well, said she, and came towards me, and I trembled to see her coming, but her brother followed to observe her, and I stood up at her approach, and she said, Give me thy hand, Mrs. Pamela, Mrs. Andrews, Mrs. What shall I call thee? Thou hast done wonders in a little time. Thou hast not only made a rake a husband, but thou hast made a rake a preacher. But take care, added she, after all, in ironical anger, and tapped me on the neck, take care that thy vanity begins not where his ends, and that thou callest not thyself my sister. She shall, I hope, Lady Davers, said he, when she can make as great a convert of you from pride as she has of me from libertinism. Mrs. Jewkes just then came up, and said dinner was ready. Come, my Pamela, said my dear master, You desire to be excused from breakfasting with us, but I hope you'll give Lady Davers and me your company to dinner. How dare you insult me thus? Said my lady. How dare you, said he, insult me by your conduct in my own house, after I have told you I am married? How dare you think of staying here one moment, and refuse my wife the honours that belong to her as such? Merciful God, said she, give me patience, and held her hand to her forehead. Pray, sir, dear sir, said I, excuse me, don't vex my lady. Be silent, my dear love, said he. You see already what you have got by your sweet condescension. You have thrown yourself at her feet, and, insolent as she is, she has threatened to trample upon you. She'll ask you, presently, if she is to owe her excuse to your interposition, and yet nothing else can make her forgiven. Poor lady, she could not bear this, and, as if she was discomposed, she ran to her poor grieved woman, and took hold of her hand, and said, lead me down, Beck. Let us instantly quit this house, this cursed house, that once I took pleasure in. Order the fellows to get ready, and I will never see it, nor its owner more. And away she went downstairs in a great hurry, and the servants were ordered to make ready for their departure. I saw my master was troubled, and I went to him and said, Pray, dear sir, follow my lady down and pacify her. 'Tis her love to you. Poor woman, said he, I am concerned for her, but I insist upon you coming down. Since things are gone so far, her pride will get new strength else, and we shall be all to begin again. Dearest dear sir, said I, excuse my going down this once. Indeed, my dear, I won't, replied he. What? Shall it be said that my sister shall scare my wife from my table, and I present? No, I have borne too much already, and so have you, and I charge you come down when I send for you. He departed, saying these words, and I durst not dispute, for I saw he was determined, and there is as much majesty as goodness in him, as I have often had reason to observe, though never more than on the present occasion with his sister. Her ladyship instantly put on her hood and gloves, and her woman tied up a handkerchief full of things, for her principal matters were not unpacked, and her coachman got her chariot ready, and her footmen their horses, and she appeared resolved to go. But her kinsman and Mr. Colbrand had taken a turn together somewhere, and she would not come in, but sat fretting on a seat in the foreyard, with her woman by her, and at last said to one of the footmen, Do you, James, stay to attend my nephew, and we'll take the road we came. Mrs. Jewkes went to her ladyship, and said, Your ladyship will be pleased to stay dinner. 'Tis just coming up on table. No, said she, I have enough of this house. I have indeed. But give my service to your master, and I wish him happier than he has made me. He had sent for me down, and I came, though unwillingly, and the cloth was laid in the parlour I had jumped out of, and there was my master walking about it. Mrs. Jewkes came in, and asked if he pleased to have dinner brought in, for my lady would not come in, but desired her service, and wished him happier than he had made her. He, seeing her at the window, when he went to that side of the room, all ready to go, stepped out to her, and said, Lady Davers, if I thought you would not be hardened, rather than softened, by my civility, I would ask you to walk in, and, at least, let your kinsmen and servants dine before they go. She wept, and turned her face from him, to hide it. He took her hand, and said, Come, sister, let me prevail upon you, walk in. No, said she, don't ask me. I wish I could hate you as much as you hate me. You do, said he, and a great deal more, I'll assure you, or else you'd not vex me as you do. Come, pray walk in. Don't ask me, said she. Her kinsman just then returned. Why, madam, said he, your ladyship won't go till you have dined, I hope. No, Jacky, said she, I can't stay. I'm an intruder here, it seems. Think, said my master, of the occasion you gave for that word. Your violent passions are the only intruders. Lay them aside, and never sister was dearer to a brother. Don't say such another word, said she, I beseech you, for I am too easy to forgive you anything for one kind word. You shall have 100, said he, nay, 10,000, if they will do, my dear sister. And kissing her, he added, Pray give me your hand. John, said he, put up the horses. You are all as welcome to me, for all your ladies angry with me, as at any inn you can put up at. Come, Mr. H., said he, lead your aunt in, for she won't permit that honour to me. This quite overcame her, and she said, giving her brother her hand, Yes, I will, and you shall lead me anywhere, and kissed him. But don't think, she said, I can forgive you neither. And so he led her into the parlour where I was. But, said she, why do you lead me to this wench? 'Tis my wife, my dear sister, and if you will not love her, yet don't forget common civilities to her, for your own sake. Pray, madam, said her kinsman, since your brother is pleased to own his marriage, we must not forget common civilities, as Mr. B. says. And, sir, added he, permit me to wish you joy. Thank you, sir, said he. And may I? said he, looking at me. Yes, sir, replied my master. So he saluted me, very complacently, and said, I vow to Gad, madam, I did not know this yesterday, and if I was guilty of a fault, I beg your pardon. My lady said, Thou art a good-natured foolish fellow. Thou might have saved this nonsensical parade, till I had given thee leave. Why, aunt, said he, if they are actually married, there's no help for it, and we must not make mischief between man and wife. But, brother, said she, do you think I'll sit at a table with a creature? No contemptuous names, I beseech you, Lady Davers. I tell you she is really my wife, and I must be a villain to suffer her to be ill-used. She has no protector but me, and, if you will permit her, she will always love and honour you. Indeed, I will, madam, said I. I cannot. I won't sit down at table with her, said she. Pamela, I hope thou dost not think I will. Indeed, madam, said I, if your good brother will permit it, I will attend your chair all the time you dine, to shew my veneration for your ladyship, as the sister of my kind protector. See, said he, her condition has not altered her, but I cannot permit in her a conduct unworthy of my wife, and I hope my sister will not expect it neither. Let her leave the room, replied she, if I must stay. Indeed you are out of the way, aunt, said her kinsman. That is not right, as things stand, said my master. No, madam, that must not be, but if it must be so, we'll have 2 tables. You and your nephew shall sit at one, and my wife and I at the other, and then we see what a figure your unreasonable punctilio will make you cut. She seemed irresolute, and he placed her at the table, the first course, which was fish, being brought in. Where, said she to me, wouldst thou presume to sit? Wouldst have me give place to thee too, wench? Come, said my master, I'll put that out of dispute, and so set himself down by her ladyship, at the upper end of the table, and placed me at his left hand. Excuse me, my dear, said he, this once excuse me. Oh, you cursed complaisance, said she, to such a— Hush, sister, hush, said he. I will not bear to hear her spoken slightly of. 'Tis enough that to oblige your violent and indecent caprice you make me compromise with you thus. Come, sir, added he, pray take your place next to your gentle aunt. Beck, said she, do you sit down by Pamela there, since it must be so, we'll be hail fellow all. With all my heart, replied my master. I have so much honour for all the sex, that I would not have the meanest person off it stand, while I sit, had I been to have made the custom. Mrs. Warden, pray sit down. Sir, said she, I hope I shall know my place better. My lady sat considering, and then, lifting up her hand, said, Lord, what will this world come to? To nothing but what's very good, replied my master, if such spirits as Lady Davers do but take the rule of it. Shall I help you, sister, to some of the carp? Help your beloved, said she. That's kind, said he. Now, that's my good Lady Davers. Here, my love, let me help you, since my sister desires it. Mighty well, returned she, mighty well, but sat on one side, turning from me, as it were. Dear aunt, said her kinsman, let's see your buss and be friends. Since 'tis so, what signifies it? Hold thy fool's tongue, said she. Is thy tone so soon turned since yesterday? Said my master. I hope nothing affronting was offered yesterday to my wife, in her own house. She hit him a good smart slap on the shoulder. "Take that, impudent brother," said she. "I'll wife you, and in her own house." She seemed half afraid, but he, in very good humour, kissed her and said, "I thank you, sister, I thank you, but I have not had a blow from you before for some time." "'Fore gad," said her kinsman, "'tis very kind of you to take it so well. Her ladyship is as good a woman as ever lived, but I've had many a cuff from her myself." "I won't put it up neither," said my master, "except you'll assure me you have seen her serve her lord so." I pressed my foot to his, and said softly, "Don't, dear sir." "What," said she, "is the creature begging me off from insult? If his manners won't keep him from outraging me, I won't owe his forbearance to thee, wench," said my master, and put some fish on my lady's plate. "Well, does Lady Davers use the word insult? But let me see you eat one mouthful, and I'll forgive you," and he put the knife in one of her hands and the fork in the other. "As I hope to live," said he, "I cannot bear this silly childishness for nothing at all. I am quite ashamed of it." She put a little bit to her mouth, but laid it down in her plate again. "I cannot eat," said she. "I cannot swallow, I'm sure. It will certainly choke me." He had forbid his men servants to come in, that they might not behold the scene he expected, and rose from the table himself, and filled a glass of wine, her woman offering, and her kinsman rising to do it. Meantime, his seat between us being vacant, she turned to me. "How now, Confidence," said she, "darest thou sit next to me? Why dost thou not rise and take the glass from thy property?" "Sit still, my dear," said he. "I'll help you both." But I arose, for I was afraid of a good cuff, and said, "Pray, sir, let me help my lady." "So you shall," replied he, "when she's in a humour to receive it as she ought." "Sister," said he, with a glass in his hand, "pray drink. You'll perhaps eat a little bit of something then." "Is this to insult me?" said she. "No, really," returned he, "but to incite you to eat, for you'll be sick for want of it." She took the glass, and said, "God forgive you, wicked wretch, for your usage of me this day. This is a little as it used to be. I once had your love, and now it is changed. And for whom? That vexes me." And wept so, she was forced to set down the glass. "You don't do well," said he. "You neither treat me like your brother nor a gentleman, and if you would suffer me, I would love you as well as ever. But for a woman of sense and understanding, and a fine-bred woman, as I once thought my sister, you act quite a childish part. Come," added he, and held her glass to her lips, "let your brother, that you once loved, prevail on you to drink this glass of wine." She then drank it. He kissed her, and said, "Oh, how passion deforms the noblest minds! You have lost a good deal of that loveliness that used to adorn my sister, and let me persuade you to compose yourself, and be my sister again. For Lady Davers is indeed a fine woman, and has a presence as majestic for a lady, as her dear brother has for a gentleman." He then sat down between us again, and said, when the second course came in, "Let Abraham come in and wait." I touched his toe again, but he minded it not, and I saw he was right, for her ladyship began to recollect herself, and did not behave half so ill before the servants as she had done, and helped herself with some little freedom. But she could not forbear a strong sigh and a sob now and then. She called for a glass of the same wine she had drank before. Said he, "Shall I help you again, Lady Davers?" and rose, at the same time, and went to the sideboard, and filled her glass. "Indeed," said she, "I love to be soothed by my brother. Your health, sir." End of section 28.
Or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Pamela, or Virtue Rewarded, by Samuel Richardson. Section 29. Said my master to me, with great sweetness, "My dear, now I'm up, I'll fill for you. I must serve both sisters alike." She looked at the servant, as if he were a little check upon her, and said to my master, "How now, sir? Not that you know of." He whispered her, "Don't show any contempt. before my servants to one I have so deservedly made their mistress. Consider, 'tis done. Ay, said she, that's the thing that kills me. He gave me a glass. My good lady's health, sir, said I. That won't do, said she, leaning towards me, softly, and was going to say wench or creature, or some such word. And my master, seeing Abraham look towards her, her eyes being red and swelled, said, indeed, sister, I would not vex myself about it, if I was you. About what? Said she. Why, replied he, about your lord's not coming down, as he had promised. He sat down, and she tapped him on the shoulder. Ah, wicked one, said she, nor will that do neither. Why, to be sure, added he, it would vex a lady of your sense and merit to be slighted, if it was so. But I am sure my lord loves you, as well as you love him, and you know not what may have happened. She shook her head and said, that's like your art. This makes one amazed you should be so caught. Who, my lord caught? Said he. No, no, he'll have more wit than so. But I never heard you were jealous before. Nor, said he, have you any reason to think so now? Honest friend, you need not wait, said she. My woman will help us to what we want. Yes, let him, replied he. Abraham, fill me a glass. Come, said my master, Lord Davers to you, madam. I hope he'll take care he is not found out. You're very provoking, brother, said she. I wish you were as good as Lord Davers, but don't carry your jest too far. Well, said he, 'tis a tender point, I own. I've done. By these kind managements the dinner passed over better than I expected, and when the servants were withdrawn, my master said, still keeping his place between us, I have a question to ask you, Lady Davers, and that is, if you'll bear me company to Bedfordshire. I was intending to set out thither tomorrow, but I'll tarry your pleasure if you'll go with me. Is thy wife, as thou callest her, to go along with thee, friend? Said she. Yes, to be sure, answered he, my dear Quaker sister, and took her hand and smiled. And wouldn't have me parade it with her on the road? Hey? And make one to grace her retinue? Hey? Tell me how thou'dst chalk it out, if I would do as thou wouldst have me, honest friend? He clasped his arms about her and kissed her. You are a dear, saucy sister, said he, but I must love you. Why, I'll tell you how I'd have it. Here shall you, and my Pamela, leave out my I desire you, if you have me sit patiently. No, replied he, I can't do that. Here shall you and my Pamela go together in your chariot, if you please, and she will then appear as one of your retinue, and your nephew and I will sometimes ride, and sometimes go into my chariot to your woman. Shouldn't thou like this, creature? Said she to me. If your ladyship think it not too great an honour for me, madam, said I. Yes, replied she, but my ladyship does think it would be too great an honour. Now I think of it, said he, this must not be neither, for, without you'd give her the hand in your own chariot, my wife would be thought your woman, and that must not be. Why, that would, may be, said she, be the only inducement for me to bear her near me, in my chariot. But how then, why then, when we came home, we'd get Lord Davers to come to us, and stay a month or two. And what if he was to come? Why would I have you, as I know you have a good fancy? Give Pamela your judgment on some patterns I expect from London, for clothes. Provoking wretch, said she, Now I wish I may keep my hands to myself. I don't say it to provoke you, said he, nor ought it to do so. But when I tell you I am married, is it not a consequence that we must have new clothes? Hast thou any more of those obliging things to say to me, friend? Said she. I will make you a present, returned he, worth your acceptance, if you will grace us with your company at church, when we make our appearance. Take that, said she, if I die for it. Wretch that thou art, and was going to hit him a great slap, but he held her hand. Her kinsman said, Dear aunt, I wonder at you. Why, all these are things of course. I begged leave to withdraw, and as I went out, my good master said, There's a person, there's a shape, there's a sweetness. Oh, Lady Davers, were you a man, you would dote on her as I do. Yes, said the naughty lady, so I should, for my harlot, but not for my wife. I turned on this and said, Indeed your ladyship is cruel, and well may gentlemen take liberties, when ladies of honour say such things. And I wept and added, Your ladyship's inference, if your good brother was not the most generous of men, would make me very unhappy. No fear, wench, no fear, said she. Thou'lt hold me as long as anybody can. I see that. Poor Sally Godfrey never had half the interest in him, I'll assure you. Stay, my Pamela, said he, in a passion, stay, when I bid you. You have now heard two vile charges upon me. I love you with such a true affection, that I ought to say something before this malicious accuser, that you may not think your consummate virtue linked to so black a villain. Her nephew seemed uneasy, and blamed her much, and I came back, but trembled as I stood, and he set me down, and said, taking my hand, I have been accused, my dear, as a jeweller, and now as a profligate, in another sense, and there was a time I should not have received these imputations with so much concern as I now do, when I would wish, by degrees, by a conformity of my manners to your virtue, to show every one the force your example has upon me. But this briefly is the case of the first. I had a friend who had been basely attempted to be assassinated by bravos, hired by a man of title in Italy, who, like many other persons of title, had no honour, and at Padua I had the fortune to disarm one of those bravos in my friend's defence, and made him confess his employer, and him, I own, I challenged. At Siena we met, and he died in a month after, of a fever, but, I hope, not occasioned by the slight wounds he had received from me, though I was obliged to leave Italy upon it, sooner than I intended, because of his numerous relations, who looked upon me as the cause of his death, though I pacified them by a letter I wrote them from Innsbruck, acquainting them with the baseness of the deceased, and they followed me not to Munich as they intended. This is one of the good-natured hints that might shock your sweetness, on reflecting that you are yoked with a murderer. The other, nay, brother, said she, say no more. 'Tis your own fault if you go further. She shall know it all, said he, and I defy the utmost stretch of your malice. When I was at college I was well received by a widow lady, who had several daughters, and but small fortunes to give them, and the old lady set one of them, a deserving good girl she was, to draw me into marriage with her, for the sake of the fortune I was heir to, and contrived many opportunities to bring us and leave us together. I was not then of age, and the young lady, not half so artful as her mother, yielded to my addresses before the mother's plot could be ripened, and so utterly disappointed it. This, my Pamela, is the Sally Godfrey this malicious woman, with the worst intentions, has informed you of, and whatever other liberties I may have taken, for perhaps some more I have, which, had she known, you had heard of as well as this. I desire Heaven will only forgive me, till I revive its vengeance by the like offences, in injury to my Pamela. And now, my dear, you may withdraw, for this worthy sister of mine has said all the bad she knows of me, and what, at a proper opportunity, when I could have convinced you that they were not my boast, but my concern, I should have acquainted you with myself, for I am not fond of being thought better than I am, though I hope from the hour I devoted myself to so much virtue, to that of my death, my conduct shall be irreproachable. She was greatly moved at this, and the noble manner in which the dear gentleman owned and repented of his faults, and gushed out into tears, and said, No, don't yet go, Pamela, I beseech you. My passion has carried me too far, a great deal, and, coming to me, she shook my hand and said, You must stay to hear me beg his pardon, and so took his hand. But, to my concern, for I was grieved for her ladyship's grief, he burst from her, and went out of the parlour into the garden in a violent rage, that made me tremble. Her ladyship sat down, and leaned her head against my bosom, and made my neck wet with her tears, holding me by the hands, and I wept for company. Her kinsman walked up and down the parlour in a sad fret, and going out afterwards, he came in, and said, Mr. B. has ordered his chariot to be got ready, and won't be spoken to by anybody. Where is he? Said she. Walking in the garden till it is ready, replied he. Well, said she, I have indeed gone too far. I was bewitched. And now, said she, malicious as he calls me, will he not forgive me for a 12-month? For I tell you, Pamela, if ever you offend, he will not easily forgive. I was all delighted, though sad, to see her ladyship so good to me. Will you venture, said she, to accompany me to him? Dare you follow a lion in his retreats? I'll attend your ladyship, said I, wherever you command. Well, wench, said she, Pamela, I mean, thou art very good in the main. I should have loved thee as well as my mother did, if but 'tis all over now. Indeed you should not have married my brother. But come, I must love him. Let's find him out. And yet will he use me worse than a dog? I should not, added she, have so much exasperated him, for whenever I have always had the worst of it. He knows I love him. In this manner her ladyship talked to me, leaning on my arm, and walking into the garden. I saw he was still in a tumult, as it were, and he took another walk to avoid us. She called after him, and said, Brother, brother, let me speak to you. One word with you. And as we made haste towards him, and came near to him, I desire, said he, that you'll not oppress me more with your follies, and your violence. I have borne too much with you, and I will vow for a 12-month from this day. Hush, said she, don't vow. I beg you for too well will you keep it. I know my experience if you do. You see, said she, I stoop to ask Pamela to be my advocate. Sure, that will pacify you. Indeed, said he, I desire to see neither of you on such an occasion, and let me only be left to myself, for I will not be intruded upon thus, and was going away. But, said she, one word first, I desire. If you'll forgive me, I'll forgive you." "What?" said the dear man, haughtily. "Will you forgive me?" "Why?" said she, for she saw him too angry to mention his marriage, as a subject that required her pardon. "I will forgive you all your bad usage of me this day." "I will be serious with you, sister," said he. "I wish you most sincerely well, but let us, from this time, study so much one another's quiet, as never to come near one another more." "Never?" said she. "And can you desire this, barbarous brother? Can you?" "I can, I do," said he. "And I have nothing to do, but to hide from you, not a brother, but a murderer, and a profligate, unworthy of your relation, and let me be consigned to penitence for my past evils. A penitence, however, that shall not be broken in upon by so violent an accuser." "Pamela," said he, and made me tremble, "how dare you approach me, without leave, when you see me thus disturbed? Never for the future come near me, when I am in these tumults, unless I send for you." "Dear sir," said I. "Leave me," interrupted he. "I will set out for Bedfordshire this moment." "What, sir," said I, "without me?" "What have I done?" "You have too meanly," said he, "for my wife, stooped to this furious sister of mine, and, till I can recollect, I am not pleased for you. But Colbrand shall attend you, and two other of my servants, and Mrs. Jewkes shall wait upon you part of the way, and I hope you'll find me in a better disposition to receive you there, than I am at parting with you here." Had I not hoped that this was partly put on to intimidate my lady, I believe I could not have borne it; but it was grievous to me, for I saw he was most sincerely in a passion. "I was afraid," said she, "he would be angry at you, as well as me, for well do I know his unreasonable violence, when he is moved. But one word, sir," said she, "pardon Pamela, if you want me, for she has committed no offence but that of good nature to me, and at my request. I will be gone myself, directly, as I was about to do, had you not prevented me." "I prevented you," said he, "through love, but you have strung me for it, through hatred. But as for my Pamela, I know, besides the present moment, I cannot be angry with her, and therefore I desire her never to see me, on such occasions, till I can see her in the temper I ought to be in, when so much sweetness approaches me. 'Tis therefore I say, my dearest, leave me now." "But, sir," said I, "must I leave you, and let you go to Bedfordshire without me?" "Oh, dear sir, how can I?" said my lady. "You may go to-morrow, both of you, as you had designed, and I will go away this afternoon. And, since I cannot be forgiven, will try to forget I have a brother." "May I, sir," said I, "beg all your anger on myself, and to be reconciled to your good sister?" "Presuming Pamela," replied he, and made me start. "Art thou then so hardy, so well able to sustain a displeasure, which of all things I expected from thy affection, and thy tenderness, thou wouldst have wished to avoid?" "Now," said he, and took my hand, and, as it were, tossed it from him, "begone from my presence, and reflect upon what you have said to me." I was so frightened, for then I saw he took amiss what I said, that I took hold of his knees, as he was turning from me, and I said, "Forgive me, good sir. You see I am not so hardy. I cannot bear your displeasure," and was ready to sink. His sister said, "Only forgive Pamela, 'tis all I ask. You'll break her spirit quite. You'll carry your passion as far too far as I have done. I need not say, said he, how well I love her, but she must not intrude upon me at such times as these. I had intended, as soon as I could have quelled by my reason the tumults you had caused by your violence, to have come in, and taken such a leave of you both, as might become a husband and a brother, but she has unbidden broke in upon me, and must take the consequence of the passion, which, when raised, is as uncontrollable as your own. Said she, did I not love you so well, as sister never loved a brother, I should not have given you all this trouble. And did I not, said he, love you better than you are resolved to deserve, I should be indifferent to all you say. But this last instance, after the duelling story, which you would not have mentioned, had you not known it, is always matter of concern for me to think upon. Of poor Sally Godfrey, is a piece of spite and meanness, that I can renounce you my blood for. Well, said she, I am convinced it was wrong. I am ashamed of it myself. 'Twas poor, 'twas mean, 'twas unworthy of your sister. And 'tis for this reason I stoop to follow you, to beg your pardon, and even to procure one for my advocate, who I believe had some interest in you, if I might have believed your own professions to her, which now I shall begin to think made purposely to insult me. I care not what you think, after the meanness you have been guilty of. I can only look upon you with pity, for indeed you have fallen very low with me. 'Tis plain I have, said she, but I'll be gone. And so, brother, let me call you for this once. God bless you. And Pamela, said her ladyship, God bless you, and kissed me, and wept. I durst say no more, and my lady turning from him, he said, your sex is the D—L. How strangely can you discompose, calm, and turn, as you please, as poor weathercocks of men. Your last kind blessing to my Pamela I cannot stand. Kissed but each other again, and then he took both our hands, and joined them, and my lady saluting me again, with tears on both sides, he put his kind arms about each of our waists, and saluted us with great affection, saying, now, God bless you both, the two dearest creatures I have in the world. Well, said she, you will quite forget my fault about Miss— He stopped her before she could speak the name, and said, forever forget it. And, Pamela, I'll forgive you too, if you don't again make my displeasure so light a thing to you, as you did just now. Said my lady, she did not make your displeasure a light thing to her, but the heavier it was, the higher compliment she made me, that she would bear it all, rather than not see you and me reconciled. No matter for that, said he, it was either an absence of thought, or a slight by implication at least, that my niceness could not bear from her tenderness. For looked it not presuming that she could stand my displeasure, or was sure of making her terms when she pleased, which fond as I am of her, I assure her will not be always in wilful faults in her power. Nay, said my lady, I can tell you, Pamela, you have a gentleman here in my brother, and you may expect such treatment from him as that character, and his known good sense and breeding will always oblige him to show. But if you offend, the Lord have mercy upon you. You see how it is by poor me, and yet I never knew him to forgive so soon. I am sure, said I will take care as much as I can, for I have been frightened out of my wits, and had offended before I knew where I was. So happily did this storm blow over, and my lady was quite subdued and pacified. When we came out of the garden, his chariot was ready, and he said, "Well, sister, I had most assuredly gone away towards my other house, if things had not taken this happy turn, and, if you please, instead of it, you and I will take an airing. And pray, my dear, said he to me, bid Mrs. Jewkes order supper by 8 o'clock, and we shall then join you. Sir, added he, to her nephew, will you take your horse and escort us? I will, said he, and am glad at my soul to see you all so good friends. So my dear lord and master handed my lady into his chariot, and her kinsman and his servants rode after them, and I went up to my closet to ruminate on these things. And, foolish thing that I am, this poor Miss Sally Godfrey runs into my head. How soon the name and quality of a wife gives one privileges, in one's own account. Yet, methinks, I want to know more about her, for is it not strange that I, who lived years in the family, should have heard nothing of this? But I was so constantly with my lady, that I might the less hear of it, for she, I dare say, never knew it, or she would have told me. But I dare not ask him about the poor lady, yet I wonder what became of her, whether she be living, and whether anything came of it. Maybe I shall hear full soon enough, but I hope not to any bad purpose. As to the other unhappy case, I know it was talked of, that in his travels, before I was taken into the family long, he had 1 or 2 broils, and, from a youth, he was always remarkable for courage, and is reckoned a great master of his sword. God grant he may never be put to use it, and that he may be always preserved in honour and safety. About 7 o'clock my master sent word that he would have me not expect him to supper, for that he, and my lady his sister, and nephew, were prevailed upon to stay with Lady Jones, and that Lady Darnford and Mr. Peters's family had promised to meet them there. I was glad they did not send for me, and the rather, as I hoped those good families, being my friends, would confirm my lady a little in my favour, and so I followed my writing closely. About 11 o'clock they returned. I had but just come down, having tired myself with my pen, and was sitting talking with Mrs. Jewkes and Mrs. Worden, whom I would, though unwillingly on their sides, make sit down, which they did over against me. Mrs. Worden asked my pardon, in a good deal of confusion, for the part she had acted against me, saying, that things had been very differently represented to her, and that she little thought I was married, and that she was behaving so rudely to the lady of the house. I said, I took nothing amiss, and very freely forgave her, and hoped my new condition would not make me forget how to behave properly to every one, but that I must endeavour to act not unworthy of it, for the honour of the gentleman who had so generously raised me to it. Mrs. Jewkes said, that my situation gave me great opportunities of showing the excellence of my nature, that I could forgive offences against me so readily, as she, for her own part, must always, she said, acknowledge with confusion of face. People, said I, Mrs. Jewkes, don't know how they shall act when their wills are in the power of their superiors, and I always thought one should distinguish between acts of malice and of implicit obedience, though at the same time a person should know how to judge between lawful and unlawful. And even the great, though at present angry they are not obeyed, will afterwards have no ill opinion of a person for withstanding them in their unlawful commands. Mrs. Jewkes seemed a little concerned at this, and I said I spoke chiefly from my own experience. For that I might say, as they both knew my story, that I had not wanted both for menaces and temptations, and had I complied with the one, or been intimidated by the other, I should not have been what I was. "Ah, madam," replied Mrs. Jewkes, "I never knew anybody like you, and I think your temper sweeter since the happy day than before, and that, if possible, you take less upon you." "Why, a good reason," said I. "May I be assigned for that? I thought myself in danger. I looked upon everyone as my enemy, and it was impossible that I should not be fretful, uneasy, jealous. But when my dearest friend had taken from me the ground of my uneasiness, and made me quite happy, I should have been very blamable, if I had not shown a satisfied and easy mind, and a temper that should engage every one's respect and love at the same time, if possible, and so much the more, as it was but justifying in some sort the honour I had received. For the fewer enemies I made myself, the more I engaged every one to think that my good benefactor had been less blame in descending as he has done." This way of talking pleased them both very much, and they made me many compliments upon it, and wished me always to be happy, as they said I so well deserved. We were thus engaged, when my master and his sister and her nephew came in, and they made me quite alive, in the happy humour in which they all returned. The two women would have withdrawn, but my master said, "Don't go, Mrs. Worden. Mrs. Jewkes, pray stay. I shall speak to you presently." So he came to me, and saluting me, said, "Well, my dear love, I hope I have not trespassed upon your patience, by an absence longer than we designed. But it has not been to your disadvantage, for though we had not your company, we talked of nobody else but you." My lady came up to me, and said, "Child, you have been all our subject. I don't know how it is, but you have made 2 or 3 good families in this neighbourhood as much your admirers as your friend here." "My sister," said he, "has been hearing your praises, Pamela, from half a score mouths, with more pleasure than her heart will easily let her express." "My good Lady Davers's favour," said I, "and the continuance of yours, sir, would give me more pride than that of all the rest of the world put together." "Well, child," said she, "proud hearts don't come down all at once, though my brother here has this day set mine a good many pegs lower than I ever knew it. But I will say, I wish you joy with my brother, and so kiss me." "My dear lady," said I, "you for ever oblige me. I shall now believe myself quite happy. This was all I wanted to make me so. And I hope I shall always, through my life, show your ladyship, that I have the most grateful and respectful sense of your goodness." "But, child," said she, "I shall not give you my company when you make your appearance. Let your own merit make all your Bedfordshire neighbours your friends, as it has done here, by your Lincolnshire ones, and you'll have no need of my countenance, nor anybody's else." "Now," said her nephew, "'tis my turn. I wish you joy with all my soul, madam, and, by what I have seen, and by what I have heard, 'fore Gad, I think you have met with no more than you deserve, and so all the company says where we have been. And pray forgive all my nonsense to you." "Sir," said I shall always, I hope, respect, as I thought, so near a relation of my good Lord and Lady Davers, and I thank you for your kind compliment." "Gad, Beck," said he, "I believe you've some forgiveness too to ask, for we were all to blame, to make madam here fly the pit as she did. Little did we think we made her quit her own house. Thou always, said my lady, sayest too much, or too little. Mrs. Worden said, I have been treated with so much goodness and condescension since you went, that I have been beforehand, sir, in asking pardon myself. So my lady sat down with me half an hour, and told me that her brother had carried her a fine airing, and had quite charmed her with his kind treatment of her, and had much confirmed her in the good opinion she had begun to entertain of my discreet and obliging behaviour. But, continued she, when he would make me visit, without intending to stay, my old neighbours, for, said she, Lady Jones being nearest, we visited her first, and she scraped all the rest of the company together. They were all so full of your praises, that I was quite borne down, and truly it was Saul among the prophets. You may believe how much I was delighted with this, and I spared not my due acknowledgments. When her ladyship took leave to go to bed, she said good night to you heartily, and to your good man. I kissed you when I came in, out of form, but I now kiss you out of more than form, I'll assure you. Join with me, my dear parents, in my joy for this happy turn, the contrary of which I so much dreaded, and was the only difficulty I had to labour with. This poor Miss Sally Godfrey, I wonder what's become of her, poor soul. I wish he would of his own head mention her again. Not that I am very uneasy, neither. You'll say I must be a little saucy if I was. End of section 29.
For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by Valli. Pamela or Virtue Rewarded by Samuel Richardson. Section 30. My dear master gave me an account, when he went up, of the pains he had taken with his beloved sister, as he himself styled her, and of all the kind things the good families had said in my behalf, and that he observed she was not so much displeased with hearing them as she was at first, when she would not permit anybody to speak of me as his wife, and that my health, as his spouse, being put, when it came to her, she drank it, but said, Come, brother, here's your Pamela to you. But I shall not know how to stand this affair, when the Countess and the young ladies come to visit me. One of these young ladies was the person who was so fond of promoting a match with her brother. Lady Betty, I know, she said, will rally me smartly upon it, and you know, brother, she wants neither wit nor satire. He said, I hope Lady Betty, whenever she marries, will meet with a better husband than I should have made her, for in my conscience, I think I should hardly have made a tolerable one to any but Pamela. He told me that they rallied him on the stateliness of his temper, and said, they saw he would make an exceeding good husband where he was, but it must be owing to my meekness more than to his complaisance, for, said Miss Darnford, I could see very well enough when your ladyship detained her, though he had but hinted his desire of finding her at our house. He was so out of humour at her supposed non-compliance, that mine and my sister's pity for her was much more engaged than our envy. Ay, said my lady, he is too lordly a creature, by much, and can't bear disappointment nor never could. Said he, well, Lady Davers, you should not for all persons find fault with me, for I bore a great deal from you before I was at all angry. Yes, she replied, but when I had gone a little too far, as I own I did, you made me pay for it severely enough. You know you did, sauce-box. And the poor thing too, added she, that I took with me for my advocate. So low had he brought me, he treated her in such a manner as made my heart ache for her. But part was art, I know, to make me think the better of her. Indeed, sister, said he, there was very little of that, for at that time I cared not what you thought, nor had complaisance enough to have given a shilling for your good or bad opinion of her or me. And I own I was displeased to be broken in upon, after your provocations, by either of you, and she must learn that lesson never to come near me when I am in those humours, which shall be as little as possible. For after a while, if let alone, I always come to myself, and am sorry for the violence of a temper, so like my dear sisters here. And for this reason, think it is no matter how few witnesses I have of its intemperance while it lasts, especially since every witness, whether they merit it or not, as you see in my Pamela's case, must be a sufferer by it, if unsent for, they come in my way. He repeated the same lesson to me again, and enforced it, and owned that he was angry with me in earnest just then, though more with himself afterwards for being so. But when Pamela, he said, you wanted to transfer all the displeasure upon yourself, it was so much braving me with your merit, as if I must soon end my anger, if placed there, or it was making it so light to you, that I was truly displeased. For, continued he, I cannot bear that you should wish, on any occasion whatever, to have me angry with you, or not to value my displeasure as the heaviest misfortune that could befall you. But, sir, said I, you know that what I did was to try to reconcile my lady, and, as she herself observed, it was paying her a high regard. It was so, replied he, but never think of making a compliment to her or anybody living at my expense. Besides, she had behaved herself so intolerably that I began to think you had stooped too much, and more than I ought to permit my wife to do, and acts of meanness are what I can't endure in anybody, but especially where I love, and as she had been guilty of a very signal one, I had much rather have renounced her at that time, than have been reconciled to her. Sir, said I hope I shall always comport myself so as not wilfully to disoblige you for the future, and the rather do. I hope this, as I am sure I shall want only to know your pleasure to obey it. But this instance shews me that I may more offend, without designing it in the least. Now, Pamela, replied he, don't be too serious. I hope I shan't be a very tyrannical husband to you, yet do I not pretend to be perfect, nor to be always governed by reason in my first transports, and I expect from your affection that you will bear with me when you find me wrong. I have no ungrateful spirit, and can, when cool, enter as impartially into myself as most men, and then am always kind and acknowledging, in proportion as I have been out of the way. But to convince you, my dear, continued he, of your fault, I mean with regard to the impetuosity of my temper, for there was no fault in your intention, that I acknowledge. I'll observe only that you met, when you came to me, while I was so out of humour, a reception you did not expect, and a harsh word or two that you did not deserve. Now, had you not broken in upon me while my anger lasted, but stayed till I had come to you, or sent to desire your company, you'd have seen none of this. At that affectionate behaviour, which I doubt not you'll always merit, and I shall always take pleasure in expressing, and in this temper shall you always find a proper influence over me. But you must not suppose, whenever I am out of humour, that in opposing yourself to my passion, you oppose a proper butt to it. But when you are so good like the slender reed to bend to the hurricane, rather than, like the sturdy oak, to resist it, you will always stand firm in my kind opinion, while a contrary conduct would uproot you, with all your excellencies, from my soul. Sir, said I'll endeavour to conform myself in all things to your will. I make no doubt but you will, and I'll endeavour to make my will as comfortable to reason as I can. And let me tell you, that this belief of you is one of the inducements I have had to marry at all. For nobody was more averse to this state than myself, and now we are upon this subject, I'll tell you why I was so averse. We, people of fortune, or such as are born to large expectations of both sexes, are generally educated wrong. You have occasionally touched upon this, Pamela, several times in your journal, so justly that I need say the less to you. We are usually so headstrong, so violent in our wills, that we very little bear control. Humoured by our nurses, through the fault of our parents, we practise first upon them, and shew the gratitude of our dispositions in an insolence that ought rather to be checked and restrained than encouraged. Next, we are to be indulged in everything at school, and our masters and mistresses are rewarded with further grateful instances of our boisterous behaviour. But in our wise parents' eyes, all looks well, all is forgiven and excused, and for no other reason but because we are theirs. Our next progression is, we exercise our spirits, when brought home, to the torment and regret of our parents themselves, and torture their hearts by our undutiful and perverse behaviour to them, which, however ungrateful in us, is but the natural consequence of their culpable indulgence to us, from infancy upwards. And then next, after we have perhaps half broken their hearts, a wife is looked out for. Convenience, or birth, or fortune are the first motives, affection the last, if it is at all consulted. And two persons thus educated, thus trained up in a course of unnatural ingratitude, and who have been headstrong torments to every one who has had a share in their education, as well as those to whom they owe their being, are brought together, and what can be expected but that they should pursue and carry on the same comfortable conduct in matrimony, and join most heartily to plague one another? And in some measure, indeed, this is right, because hereby they revenge the cause of all those who have been aggrieved and insulted by them upon one another. The gentleman has been never controlled, the lady has been never contradicted. He cannot bear it from one whose new relation, he thinks, should oblige her to shew a quite contrary conduct. She thinks it very barbarous now, for the first time, to be opposed in her will, and that by a man from whom she expected nothing but tenderness. So great is the difference between what they both expect from one another and what they both find in each other, that no wonder misunderstandings happen, that these ripen to quarrels, that acts of unkindness pass, which, even had the first motive to their union being affection, as usually it is not, would have effaced all manner of tender impressions on both sides. Appeal to parents or guardians often ensue. If, by mediation of friends, a reconcile takes place, it hardly ever holds. For why? The fault is in minds of both, and neither of them will think so. So that the wound, not permitted to be probed, is but skinned over, and rankles still at the bottom, and at last breaks out with more pain and anguish than before. Separate beds are often the consequence, perhaps elopements, if not an unconquerable indifference, possibly aversion. And whenever for the appearance sake they are obliged to be together, every one sees that the yawning husband and the vaporish wife are truly insupportable to one another, but separate, have freer spirits, and can be tolerable company. Now, my dear, I would have you think, and I hope you will have no other reason, that had I married the first lady in the land, I would not have treated her better than I will my Pamela. For my wife is my wife, and I was the longer in resolving on the state, because I knew its requisites and doubted my conduct in it. I believe I am more nice than many gentlemen, but it is because I have been a close observer of the behaviour of the wedded folks, and hardly ever have seen it to be such as I could like in my own case. I shall possibly give you instances of a more particular nature of this, as we are longer, and perhaps I might say better acquainted. Had I married with the views of many gentlemen, and with such as my good sister, supplying the place of my father and mother, would have recommended, I had wedded a fine lady, brought up pretty much in my own manner, and used to have her will in everything. Some gentlemen can come into a compromise, and after a few struggles, sit down tolerably contented. But had I married a princess, I could not have done so. I must have loved her exceedingly well, before I had consented to knit the knot with her, and preferred her to all her sex. For without this, Pamela, indifferences, if not disgusts, will arise in every wedded life that could not have made me happy at home, and there are fewer instances, I believe, of men's loving better after matrimony than of women's, the reason of which it's not my present purpose to account for. Then I must have been morally sure that she preferred me to all men, and to convince me of this, she must have lessened, not aggravated, my failings. She must have borne with my imperfections. She must have watched and studied my temper, and if ever she had any points to carry, any desire of overcoming, it must have been by sweetness and complaisance, and yet not such a slavish one as should make her condescension seem to be rather the effect of her insensibility than judgment or affection. She should not have given cause for any part of my conduct to her to wear the least aspect of compulsion or force. The word command on my side, or obedience on hers, I would have blotted from my vocabulary. For this reason, I should have thought it my duty to have desired nothing of her that was not significant, reasonable, or just, and that then she should on hers have shewn no reluctance, uneasiness, or doubt, to oblige me even at half a word. I would not have excused her to let me twice enjoin the same thing, when I took so much care to make her compliance with me reasonable, and such as should not destroy her own free agency in points that ought to be allowed her. And if I was not always right, that yet she would bear with me, if she saw me set upon it, and expostulate with me on the right side of compliance; for that would shew me, supposing small points in dispute from which the greatest quarrels among friends generally arise, that she differed from me, not for contradiction's sake, but desired to convince me for my own, and that I should another time take better resolutions. This would be so obliging a conduct, that I should in justice have doubled my esteem for one, who, to humour me, could give up her own judgment, and I should see she could have no other view in her expostulations, after her compliance had passed, than to rectify my motions for the future, and it would have been impossible then, but I must have paid the greater deference to her opinion and advice in more momentous matters. In all companies she must have shewn that she had, whether I deserved it altogether or not, a high regard and opinion of me, and this the rather, as such a conduct in her would be a reputation and security to herself. For if we rakes attempt a married lady, our first encouragement, exclusive of our own vanity, arises from the indifferent opinion, slight, or contempt she expresses of her husband. I should expect, therefore, that she should draw a kind veil over my faults, that such as she could not hide, she would extenuate, that she would place my better actions in an advantageous light, and shew that I had her good opinion, at least, whatever liberties the world took with my character. She must have valued my friends for my sake, been cheerful and easy whomsoever I had brought home with me, and whatever faults she had observed in me, have never blamed me before company, at least with such an air of superiority as should have shewn she had a better opinion of her own judgment than of mine. Now, my Pamela, this is but a faint sketch of the conduct I must have expected from my wife, let her quality have been what it would, or have lived with her on bad terms. Judge then if to me a lady of the modish taste could have been tolerable. The perverseness and contradiction that I have too often seen in some of my visits, even among people of sense as well as condition, had prejudiced me to the married state, and as I knew I could not bear it, surely I was in the right to decline it. And you see, my dear, that I have not gone among this class of people for a wife, nor know I indeed where in my class I could have sought one, or had one suitable to my mind, if not you. For here is my misfortune. I could not have been contented to have been but moderately happy in a wife. Judge you from all this, if I could very well bear that you should think yourself so well secured of my affection, that you could take the faults of others upon yourself, and by a supposed supererogatory merit think your interposition sufficient to atone for the fault of others. Yet am I not perfect myself? No, I am greatly imperfect, yet will I not allow that my imperfections shall excuse those of my wife, or make her think I ought to bear faults in her that she can rectify, because she bears greater from me. Upon the whole, I may expect that you will bear with me, and study my temper, till, and only till, You see, I am capable of returning insult for obligation, until you think that I shall be of a gentler deportment, if I am roughly used, than otherwise. One thing more I will add, that I should scorn myself if there was one privilege of your sex that a princess might expect as my wife to be indulged in, that I would not allow to my Pamela, if you are the wife of my affections. I never wished for one before you, nor ever do I hope to have another. I hope, sir, said I, my future conduct— Pardon me, said he, my dear, for interrupting you, but it is to assure you that I am so well convinced of your affectionate regard for me, that I know I might have spared the greatest part of what I have said, and indeed it must be very bad for both of us, if I should have reason to think it necessary to say so much. But one thing has brought on another, and I have rather spoken what my niceness had made me observe in other families, than what I fear in my own. And therefore let me assure you I am thoroughly satisfied with your conduct hitherto. You shall have no occasion to repent it, and you shall find, though greatly imperfect and passionate on particular provocations, which yet I will try to overcome, that you have not a brutal or ungenerous husband, who is capable of offering insult for condescension, or returning evil for good. I thanked him for these kind rules and generous assurances, and assured him that they had made so much impression on my mind, that these and his most agreeable injunctions before given me, and such as he should hereafter be pleased to give me, should be so many rules for my future behaviour. And I am glad of the method I had taken of making a journal of all that passes in these first stages of my happiness, because it will sink the impression still deeper, and I shall have recourse to them for my better regulation, as often as I shall mistrust my memory. Let me see, what are the rules I have to observe from this awful lecture? Why, these. 1. That I must not, when he is in great wrath with anybody, break in upon him without his leave. Well, I'll remember it, I warrant, but yet I think this rule is almost peculiar to himself. 2. That I must think his displeasure the heaviest thing that can befall me. To be sure I shall. 3. And so that I must not wish to incur it to save anybody else. I'll be further if I do. 4. That I must never make a compliment to anybody at his expense. 5. That I must not be guilty of any acts of wilful meanness. There is a great deal meant in this, and I'll endeavour to observe it all. To be sure, the occasion on which he mentions this explains it, that I must say nothing, though in anger, that is spiteful or malicious, that is disrespectful or undutiful, and such like. 6. That I must bear with him even when I find him in the wrong. This is a little hard, as the case may be. I wonder whether poor Miss Sally Godfrey be living or dead. 7. That I must be as flexible as the reed in the fable, lest, by resisting the tempest, like the oak, I be torn up by the roots. Well, I'll do the best I can. There is no great likelihood, I hope, that I should be too perverse. Yet sure the tempest will not lay me quite level with the ground neither. 8. That the education of young people of condition is generally wrong. Memorandum, that if any part of children's education fall to my lot, I never indulge and humour them in things that they ought to be restrained in. 9. That I accustom them to bear disappointments and control. 10. That I suffer them not to be too much indulged in their infancy. 11. Nor at school. 12. Nor spoil them when they come home. 13. For that children generally extend their perverseness from the nurse to the schoolmaster, from the schoolmaster to the parents. 14. And in their next step, as a proper punishment for all, make their own selves unhappy. 15. That undutiful and perverse children make bad husbands and wives, and collaterally bad masters and mistresses. 16. That not being subject to be controlled early, they cannot, when married, bear one another. 17. That the fault lying deep and in the minds of each other, neither will mend it. 18. Whence follow misunderstandings, quarrels, appeals, ineffectual reconciliations, separations, elopements, or at best indifference, perhaps aversion. Memorandum: a good image of unhappy wedlock, in the words yawning husband and vapourish wife when together, but separate, both quite alive. 19. Few married persons behave as he likes. Let me ponder this with awe and improvement. 20. Some gentlemen can compromise with their wives for quietness' sake, but he can't. Indeed, I believe that's true. I don't desire he should. 21. That love before marriage is absolutely necessary. 22. That there are fewer instances of men's than women's loving better after marriage. But why so? I wish he had given his reasons for this. I fancy they would not have been to the advantage of his own sex. 23. That a woman must give her husband reason to think she prefers him before all men. Well, to be sure, this should be so. 24. That if she would overcome, it must be by sweetness and complaisance, that is, by yielding, he means, no doubt. 25. Yet not such a slavish one neither, as should rather seem the effect of her insensibility than judgment or affection. 26. That the words command and obey shall be blotted out of the vocabulary. Very good. 27. That a man should desire nothing of his wife but what is significant, reasonable, just. To be sure, that is right. 28. But then, that she must not shew reluctance, uneasiness, or doubt to oblige him, and that too at half a word, and must not be bid twice to do one thing. But may not there be some occasions when this may be a little dispensed with? But he says afterwards, indeed. 29. That this must be only while he took care to make her complaisance reasonable and consistent with her free agency in points that ought to be allowed her. Come, this is pretty well, considering. 30. That if the husband be set upon a wrong thing, she must not dispute with him, but do it and expostulate afterwards. Good sirs, I don't know what to say to this. It looks a little hard, methinks. This would bear a smart debate, I fancy, in a parliament of women. But then, he says, 31. Supposing there are only small points that are in dispute. Well, this mends it a little, for small points, I think, should not be stood upon. 32. That the greatest quarrels among friends, and wives and husbands are or should be friends, arise from small matters. I believe this is very true, for I had like to have had anger here when I intended very well. 33. That a wife should not desire to convince her husband for contradiction's sake, but for his own, as both will find their account in this. If one does, I believe it's very just. 34. That in all companies a wife must shew respect and love for her husband. 35. And this for the sake of her own reputation and security, for 36. That rakes cannot have a greater encouragement to attempt a married lady's virtue than her slight opinion of her husband. To be sure, this stands to reason, and is a fine lesson. 37. That a wife should therefore draw a kind of veil over her husband's faults. 38. That such as she could not conceal, she should extenuate. 39. That his virtues she should place in an advantageous light. 40. And shew the world that he had her good opinion at least. 41. That she must value his friends for his sake. 42. That she must be cheerful and easy in her behaviour to whomsoever he brings home with her. 43. That whatever faults she sees in him, she never blame him before company. 44. At least with such an air of superiority as if she had a less opinion of his judgment than her own. 45. That a man of nice observation cannot be contented to be only moderately happy in a wife. 46. That a wife take care how she ascribe supererogatory merit to herself, so as to take the faults of others upon her. Indeed, I think it is well if we can bear our own. This is of some nature with the third, and touches upon me on the present occasion for this wholesome lecture. 47. That his imperfections must not be a plea for hers. To be sure, it's no matter how good the women are, but it's to be hoped men will allow a little. But indeed, he says. 48. That a husband who expects all this is to be incapable of returning insult for obligation, or evil for good, and ought not to abridge her of any privilege of her sex. Well, my dear parents, I think this last rule crowns the rest and makes them all very tolerable, and a generous man and a man of sense cannot be too much obliged. And as I have this happiness, I shall be very unworthy if I do not always so think, and so act. Yet, after all, you will see that I have not the easiest task in the world, but I know my own intentions, that I shall not wilfully err, and so fear the less. Not one hint did he give that I durst lay hold of about poor Miss Sally Godfrey. I wish my lady had not spoken of it, for it has given me a curiosity that is not quite so pretty in me, especially so early in my nuptials, and in a case so long ago past. Yet he intimated too to his sister that he had had other faults, of this sort, I suppose, that had not come to her knowledge. But I make no doubt he has seen his error, and will be very good for the future. I wish it, and pray it may be so, for his own dear sake. Wednesday the 7th. When I arose in the morning, I went to wait on Lady Davers, seeing her door open, and she was in bed, but awake and talking to her woman. I said, I hope I didn't disturb your ladyship. Not at all, said she. I'm glad to see you. How do you do? Well, added she, when you set out for Bedfordshire? I said, I can't tell, madam. It was designed as to-day, but I have heard no more of it. Sit down, said she, on the bedside. I find by the talk we had yesterday and last night, you have had but a poor time of it, Pamela. I must call you so yet, said she, since you were brought to this house, till within these few days. And Mrs. Jewkes too has given Beck such an account as makes me pity you. Indeed, madam, said I, if your ladyship knew all, you would pity me, for never poor creature was so hard put to it. But I ought to forget it all now, and be thankful. Why, said she, as far as I can find, it's a mercy you are here now. I was sadly moved with some part of your story, and you have really made a noble defence, and deserve the praises of all our sex. It was God enabled me, madam, replied I. Why, said she, it's the more extraordinary, because I believe, if the truth be known, you loved the wretch not a little. While my trials lasted, madam, said I had not a thought of anything but to preserve my innocence, much less of love. But tell me truly, said she, did you not love him all the time? I had always, madam, answered I, a great reverence for my master, and thought all his good actions doubly good, and for his naughty ones, though I abhorred his attempts upon me, yet I could not hate him, and always wished him well. But I did not know that it was love. Indeed, I had not the presumption. Sweet girl, said she, that's prettily said. But when he found he could not gain his ends, and began to be sorry for your sufferings, and to admire your virtue, and to profess honourable love to you, what did you think? Think? Indeed, madam, I did not know what to think. Could neither hope nor believe so great an honour would fall to my lot, and feared more from his kindness for some time than I had done from his unkindness, and having had a private intimation from a kind friend of a sham marriage intended by means of a man who was to personate a minister, it kept my mind in too much suspense to be greatly overjoyed at his kind declaration. Said she, I think he did make 2 or 3 attempts upon you in Bedfordshire. Yes, madam, said I, he was very naughty to be sure. And here he proposed articles to you, I understand? Yes, madam, replied I, but I abhorred so much the thoughts of being a kept creature, that I rejected them with great boldness, and was resolved to die before I would consent to them. He afterwards attempted you, I think, did he not? Oh yes, madam, said I, a most sad attempt he made, and I had like to have been lost, for Mrs. Jewkes was not so good as she should have been, and so I told her ladyship that sad affair, and how I fell into fits, and that they, believing me dying, forbore any attempt after this base one, she said. He was not so good as he should have been, returned I once in a garden afterwards, but I was so watchful, and so ready to take the alarm. But, said she, did he not threaten you at times, and put on his stern airs every now and then? Threaten, madam, replied I. Yes, I had enough of them. I thought I should have died for fear several times. How could you bear that? Said she. For he is a most daring and majestic mortal. He has none of your puny hearts, but is as courageous as a lion, and boy and man never feared anything. I myself, said she, have a pretty good spirit, but when I have made him truly angry, I have always been forced to make it up with him, as well as I could, for child he is not one that is easily reconciled, I assure you. But after he had professed honourable love to you, did he never attempt you again? No, indeed, madam, he did not. But he was a good while struggling with himself, and with his pride, as he was pleased to call it, before he could stoop so low, and considered again, and once upon my saying but 2 or 3 words that displeased him, when he was very kind to me, he turned me out of doors, in a manner, at an hour's warning, for he sent me above a day's journey towards my father, and then sent a man and horse post haste to fetch me back again, and has been exceedingly kind and gracious to me ever since, and made me happy. That sending you away, said she, 1 hour, and sending after you the next, is exactly like my brother, and it's well if he don't turn you off twice or thrice before a year comes about, if you vex him. And he would have done the same by the first lady in the land, if he had been married to her. Yet has he his virtues, as well as his faults, for he is generous, nay, he is noble in his spirit, hates little dirty actions, he delights in doing good, but does not pass over a wilful fault easily. He is wise, prudent, sober, and magnanimous, and will not tell a lie, nor disguise his faults. But you must not expect to have him all to yourself, I doubt. But I'll no more harp upon this string. You see how he was exasperated at me, and he seemed to be angry at you too, though something of it was art, I believe. Indeed, madam, said I, he has been pleased to give me a most noble lecture, and I find he was angry with me in earnest, and that it shall not be an easy task to behave unexceptionably to him, for he is very nice and delicate in his notions, I perceive, but yet, as your ladyship says, exceeding generous. Well, said she, I'm glad thou hadst a little bit of his anger, else I should have thought it art, and I don't love to be treated with low art any more than he, and I should have been vexed if he had done it by me. But I understand, child, said she, that you keep a journal of all matters that pass, and he has several times found means to get at it. Should you care I should see it? It could not be to your disadvantage, for I find it had no small weight with him in your favour, and I should take great pleasure to read all his stratagems, attempts, contrivances, menaces, and offers to you, on one hand, and all your pretty counterplottings, which he much praises, your resolute resistance, and the noble stand you have made to preserve your virtue, and the steps by which his pride was subdued, and his mind induced to honourable love, till you were made what you now are. For it must be a rare and uncommon story, and will not only give me great pleasure in reading, but will entirely reconcile me to the step he has taken, and that, let me tell you, is what I never thought to be. For I had gone a great way in bringing about a match with him and Lady Betty, and had said so much of it, that the Earl, her father, approved of it, and so did the Duke of her uncle, and Lady Betty herself was not averse, and now I shall be hunted to death about it, and this has made me so outrageous, as you have seen me upon the matter. But when I find by your writings that your virtue is but suitably rewarded, it will be not only a good excuse for me, but for him, and make me love you. There is nothing that I would not do, said I, to oblige your ladyship, but my poor father and mother, who would rather have seen me buried quick in the earth, than to be seduced by the greatest of princes, have them in their hands at present, and your dear brother has bespoken them when they have done reading them, but if he gives me leave, I'll shew them to your ladyship with all my heart, not doubting your generous allowances, as I have had his, though I have treated him very freely all the way, while he had naughty views, and that your ladyship would consider them as the naked sentiments of my heart, from time to time delivered to those whose indulgence I was sure of, and for whose sight only they were written. Give me a kiss now, said her ladyship, for your cheerful compliance, for I make no doubt my brother will consent I shall see them, because they must needs make for your honour, and I see he loves you better than any one in the world. I have heard, continued her ladyship, a mighty good character of your parents, as industrious, honest, sensible good folks, who know the world, and as I doubt not my brother's generosity, I am glad they will make no ill figure in the world's eye. Madam, said I, they are the honestest, lovingest, and the most conscientious couple breathing. They once lived creditably, and brought up a great family, of which I am the youngest, but had misfortunes through their doing beyond their part for two unhappy brothers, who are both dead, and whose deaths they stood bound for, and so became reduced, and by harsh creditors, where most of the debts are not of their own contracting, turned out all, and having without success tried to set up a little country school, for my father understood a little of accounts, and wrote a pretty good hand, forced to take hard labour, but honest all the time, contented, never repining, and loving to one another, and in the midst of their poverty and disappointments, above all temptation, and all their fear was, that I should be wicked, and yield to temptation for the sake of worldly riches and to God's grace, and their good lessons, and those I imbibed from my dear good lady, your ladyship's mother, it is that I owe the preservation of my innocence, and the happy station I am exalted to. She was pleased to kiss me again, and said, there is such a noble simplicity in thy story, such an honest artlessness in thy mind, and such a sweet humility in thy deportment, notwithstanding thy present station, that I believe I shall be forced to love thee, whether I will or not, and the sight of your papers, I dare say, will crown the work, will disarm my pride, banish my resentment on Lady Betty's account, and justify my brother's conduct, and at the same time redound to your own everlasting honour, as well as to the credit of our sex, and so I make no doubt but my brother will let me see them. Warden, said my lady, I can say anything before you, and you will take no notice of our conversation, but I see you are much touched with it. Did you ever hear anything prettier, more unaffected, sincere, free, easy? No, never, madam, answered she, in my life, and it is a great pleasure to see so happy a reconciliation taking place where there is so much merit. I said, I have discovered so much prudence in Mrs. Warden, that as well for that, as for the confidence of your ladyship places in her, I have made no scruple of speaking my mind freely before her, and of blaming my dear master while he was blameworthy, as well as acknowledging his transcendent goodness to me since, which I am sure exceeds all I can ever deserve. Maybe not, said my lady. I hope you'll be very happy in one another, and now I'll rise and tell him my thoughts, and ask him to let me have the reading of your papers, for I promise myself much pleasure in them, and shall not grudge a journey and a visit to you to the other house to fetch them. Your ladyship's favour, said I, was all that I had to wish for, and if I had that, and the continuance of your dear brother's goodness to me, I shall be easy under whatever else may happen. And so I took my leave and withdrew, and she let me hear her say to Mrs. Warden, it's a charming creature, Warden. I know not which excels, her person or her mind, and so young a creature too. Well may my brother love her, I am afraid, my dear father and mother, I shall now be too proud indeed. I had once a good mind to have asked her ladyship about Miss Sally Godfrey, but I thought it was better let alone, since she did not mention it herself. Maybe I shall hear it too soon, but I hope not. I wonder, though, whether she be living or dead. We breakfasted together with great good temper, and my lady was very kind, and asking my good master, he gave leave very readily she should see all my papers, when you returned them to me; and he said, he was sure when she came to read them, she would say, that I had well deserved the fortune I had met with, and would be of opinion, that all the kindness of his future life would hardly be a sufficient reward for my virtue, and make me amends for my sufferings. My lady resolving to set out the next morning to return to her lord, my master ordered everything to be made ready for his doing the like to Bedfordshire, and this evening our good neighbours will sup with us, to take leave of my lady and us. End of section 30.
Pamela, or Virtue Rewarded, by Samuel Richardson. Section 31. Wednesday night. Nothing particular having passed at dinner or supper, but the most condescending goodness on my lady's side to me, and the highest civilities from Mr. Peter's family, from Lady Jones, from Sir Simon's family, etc., and reciprocal good wishes all round, and a promise obtained from my benefactor, that he would endeavour to pass a fortnight or 3 weeks in these parts before the winter set in, I shall conclude this day with observing, that I disposed of the money my master was so good to put in my hands, in a manner he was pleased to direct me; and I gave Mrs. Jewkes hers in such a manner as highly pleased her; and she wished me, with tears, all kinds of happiness, and prayed me to forgive all her wickedness to me, as she herself called it. I begged leave of my master to present Mrs. Worden with 5 guineas for a pair of gloves, which he said was well thought of. I should have mentioned, that Miss Darnford and I agreed upon a correspondence, which will be no small pleasure to me, for she is an admirable young lady, whom I prefer to every one I have seen, and I shall, I make no doubt, improve by her letters, for she is said to have a happy talent in writing, and is well read for so young a lady. Saturday. On Thursday morning my lady set out for her own seat, and my best friend and I, attended by Mr. Colbrand, Abraham, and Thomas, for this dear house. Her ladyship parted with her brother and me with great tenderness, and made me promise to send her my papers, which I find she intends to entertain Lady Betty with, and another lady or two, her intimates, as also her lord, and hopes to find, as I believe, in the reading of them, some excuse for her brother's choice. My dearest master has been all love and tenderness on the road, as he is in every place, and on every occasion; and oh, what a delightful change was this journey, to that which, so contrary to all my wishes, and so much to my apprehensions, carried me hence to the Lincolnshire house! And how did I bless God at every turn, and at every stage! We did not arrive here till yesterday noon. Abraham rode before, to let them know we were coming, and I had the satisfaction to find everybody there I wished to see. When the chariot entered the courtyard, I was so strongly impressed with the favour and mercies of God Almighty, on remembering how I was sent away the last time I saw this house, the leave I took, the dangers I had encountered, a poor cast-off servant girl, and now returning a joyful wife, and the mistress, through his favour, of the noble house I was turned out of, that I was hardly able to support the joy I felt in my mind on the occasion. He saw how much I was moved, and tenderly asked me, why I seemed so affected? I told him, and lifted his dear hand to my lips, and said, "Oh, sir, God's mercies and your goodness to me on entering this dear, dear place are above my expression. I can hardly bear the thoughts of them." He said, "Welcome, thrice welcome, joy of my life, to your own house," and kissed my hand in return. All the common servants stood at the windows, as unseen as they could, to observe us. He took my hand with the most condescending goodness in the world, and with great complaisance led me into the parlour, and kissed me with the greatest ardour. "Welcome again, my dear life," said he, "1,000 times welcome to the possession of a house that is not more mine than yours." I threw myself at his feet. "Permit me, dear sir, thus to bless God and thank you for all his mercies and your goodness. O may I so behave as to not be utterly unworthy, and then how happy shall I be! God give me, my dearest," said he, "life and health to reward all your sweetness, and no man can be so blessed as I." "Where," said he to Abraham, who passed by the door, "where is Mr. Jervis?" She bolted in. "Here, good sir," said she, "here, good madam, am I, waiting impatiently till called for, to congratulate you both." I ran to her, and clasped my arms about her neck, and kissed her. "O my dear Mrs. Jervis," said I, "my other dear mother, receive your happy, happy Pamela, and join with me to bless God and bless our master for all these great things." I was ready to sink in her arms through excess of joy, to see the dear good woman, who had been so often a mournful witness of my distress, as now of my triumph. "Dearest madam," said she, "you do me too much honour. Let my whole life show the joy I take in your deserved good fortune, and in my duty to you, for the early instance I received of your goodness in your kind letter." "O, Mrs. Jervis," replied I, "there all thanks are due, both from you and me, for our dear master granted me this blessing, as I may justly call it, the very first moment I begged it of him." "Your goodness, sir," said she, "I will for ever acknowledge and beg pardon for the wrong step I made in applying to my Lady Davers." He was so good as to salute her, and said, "All is over now, Mrs. Jervis, and I shall not remember you ever disobliged me. I always respected you, and shall now more and more value you, for the sake of that dear good creature, whom, with joy unfeigned, I can call my wife." "God bless your honour for ever," said she, "and many, many happy years may ye live together, the envy and wonder of all who know you." "But where," said my dear master, "is honest Longman, and where is Jonathan?" "Come, Mrs. Jervis," said I, "you shall show me them, and all the good folks presently, and let me go up with you to behold the dear apartments, which I have seen before with such different emotions to what I shall now do." We went up, and in every room, the chamber I took refuge in when my master pursued me, my lady's chamber, her dressing-room, Mrs. Jervis' room, not forgetting her closet, my own little bed-chamber, the green-room, and in each of the others, I blessed God for my past escapes and present happiness. And the good woman was quite affected with the zeal and pleasure with which I made my thankful acknowledgments to the divine goodness. "O my excellent lady," said she, "you are still the same good, pious, humble soul I knew you, and your marriage has added to your graces, as I hope it will to your blessings." "Dear Mrs. Jervis," said I, "you know not what I have gone through. You know not what God has done for me. You know not what a happy creature I am now. I have 1,000 things to tell you, and a whole week will be too little, every moment of it spent in relating to you what has befallen me, to make you acquainted with it all. We shall be sweetly happy together, I make no doubt. But I charge you, my dear Mrs. Jervis, whatever you call me before strangers, that when we are by ourselves you call me nothing but your Pamela. For what an ungrateful creature should I be, who have received so many mercies, if I attributed them not to the divine goodness, but assumed to myself insolent airs upon them. No, I hope I shall be more and more thankful, as I am more and more blessed, and more humble, as God, the author of all my happiness, shall more distinguish me. We went down again to the parlour to my dear master. Said he, Call Longman in again. He longs to see you, my dear. He came in. God bless you, my sweet lady, said he, as now, heaven be praised, I may call you. Did I not tell you, madam, that Providence would find you out? Oh, Mr. Longman, said I, God be praised for all his mercies. I am rejoiced to see you. And I laid my hand upon his, and said, Good Mr. Longman, how do you do? I must always value you, and you don't know how much of my present happiness I owe to the sheets of paper and pens and ink you furnished me with. I hope, my dear sir, and you are quite reconciled. O, madam, said he, how good you are! Why, I cannot contain myself for joy. And then he wiped his eyes, good man. Said my master, Yes, I have been telling Longman that I am obliged to him for his ready return to me, and that I will entirely forget his appeal to Lady Davers, and hope he'll find himself quite as easy and happy as he wishes. My dear partner here, Mr. Longman, I dare promise you, will do all she can to make you so. Heaven bless you both together, said he. 'Tis the pride of my heart to see this. I returned with double delight when I heard the blessed news, and I'm sure, sir, said he, mark old Longman's words, God will bless you for this every year more and more. You don't know how many hearts you have made happy by this generous deed. I am glad of it, said my dear master. I am sure I have made my own happy. And Longman, though I must think you somebody, yet, as you are not a young man, and so won't make me jealous, I can allow you to wish my dear wife joy in the tenderest manner. Adad, sir, said he, I am sure you rejoice me with your favour. 'Tis what I longed for, but durst not presume. My dear, said my master, receive the compliment of one of the honestest hearts in England, that always revered your virtues. And the good man saluted me with great respect, and said, God in heaven bless you both, and knelt on one knee. I must quit your presence, indeed I must. And away he went. Your goodness, sir, said I, knows no bounds. O may my gratitude never find any. I saw, said my master, when the good man approached you, that he did with so much awe and love mingled together, that I fancied he longed to salute my angel, and I could not but indulge his honest heart. How blessed am I, said I, and kissed his hand, and indeed I make nothing now of kissing his dear hand, as if it was my own. When honest old Mr. Jonathan came in to attend at dinner, so clean, so sleek, and so neat, as he always is, with his silver hair, I said, Well, Mr. Jonathan, how do you do? I am glad to see you. You look as well as ever, thank God. Oh, dear madam, said he, better than ever to have such a blessed sight. God bless you and my dear master. And I hope, sir, said he, you'll excuse all my past failings. Ay, that I will, Jonathan, said he, because you never had any, but what your regard for my dear wife here was the occasion of. And now I can tell you, you can never err, because you cannot respect her too much. Oh, sir, said he, your honour is exceedingly good. I'm sure I shall always pray for you both. After dinner, Mr. Longman coming in and talking of some affairs under his care, he said afterwards, All your honour's servants are now happy, for Robert, who left you, had a pretty little fortune fallen to him, or he would never have quitted your service. He was here but yesterday to inquire whether you and my lady returned hither, and hoped he might have leave to pay his duty to you both. Ay, said my master, I shall be glad to see honest Robert, for that's another of your favourites, Pamela. It was high time, I think, I should marry you, were it but to engage the respects of all my family to myself. There are, sir, said I, 10,000 reasons why I should rejoice in your goodness. But I was going to say, said Mr. Longman, that all your honour's old servants are now happy but one. You mean John Arnold, said my master. I do indeed, said he, if you'll excuse me, sir. Oh, said I have had my prayers for poor John answered as favourably as I could wish. Why, said Mr. Longman, to be sure poor John has acted no very good part, take it altogether. But he so much honoured you, sir, and so much respected you, madam, that he would have been glad to have been obedient to both, and so was faithful to neither. But indeed the poor fellow's heart is almost broke, and he won't look out for any other place, and says he must live in your honour's service, or he must die wretched very shortly. Mrs. Jervis was here when this was said. Indeed, said she, the poor man had been here every day since he heard the tidings that have rejoiced us all, and he says he hopes he shall yet be forgiven. Is he in the house now? Said my master. He is, sir, and was here when your honour came in, and played at hide-and-seek to have one look at you both when you alighted, and was ready to go out of his wits for joy when he saw your honour hand my lady in. Pamela, said my dear master, you're to do with John as you please. You have full power. Then pray, sir, said I, let poor John come in. The poor fellow came in with so much confusion that I have never seen a countenance that expressed so lively a consciousness of his faults and mingled joy and shame. How do you do, John? Said I. I hope you are very well. The poor fellow could hardly speak, and looked with awe upon my master and pleasure upon me. Said my master, Well, John, there is no room to say anything to a man that has so much concern already. I am told you will serve me whether I will or not, but I turn you over altogether to my spouse here, and she is to do by you as she pleases. You see, John, said I, your good master's indulgence. Well may I forgive you that have so generous an example. I was always persuaded of your honest intentions, if you had known how to distinguish between your duty to your master and your goodwill to me. You will now have no more puzzles on that account, from the goodness of your dear master. I shall be but too happy, I said to the poor man. God bless your honour. God bless you, madam. I now have the joy of my soul in serving you both, and I will make the best of servants to my power. Well then, John, said I, your wages will go on as if you had never left your master. May I not say so, sir? Said I. Yes, surely, my dear, replied he, and augment them too, if you find his duty to you deserve it. 1,000 millions of thanks, said the poor man. I am very well satisfied, and desire no augmentation. And so he withdrew, overjoyed, and Mrs. Jervis and Mr. Longman were highly pleased, for though they were incensed against him for his fault to me, when matters looked badly for me, yet they and all his fellow servants always loved John. When Mr. Longman and Mrs. Jervis had dined, they came in again, to know if he had any commands. And my dear master, filling a glass of wine, said, Longman, I am going to toast the happy and honestest couple in England, my dear Pamela's father and mother. Thank you, dear sir, said I. I think, continued he, that little Kentish purchase wants a manager, and as it is a little out of your way, Longman, I have been proposing, if I thought Mr. Andrews would accept it, that he should enter upon Hodge's farm that was, and so manage for me that whole little affair, and we will well stock the farm for him, and make it comfortable, and I think, if he will take that trouble upon him, it will be an ease for you, and a favour for me. Your honour, said he, cannot do a better thing, and I have had some inkling given to me that you may, if you please, augment that estate by a purchase of equal amount contiguous to it, and as you have so much money to spare, I can't see your honour can do better. Well, said he, let me have the particulars another time, and we will consider about it. But, my dear, added he, you'll mention this to your father, if you please. I have too much money, Longman, continued he, lies Eustace, though upon this occasion I shall not grudge laying out as much in liveries and other things, as if I had married a lady of a fortune equal, if possible, to my Pamela's merit, and I reckon you have a good deal in hand. Yes, sir, said he, more than I wish I had. But I have a mortgage in view, if you don't buy that Kentish thing, that I believe will answer very well, and when matters are riper, will mention it to your honour. I took with me to Lincolnshire, said my master, upward of 600 guineas, and thought to have laid most of them out there. Thank God, thought I, you did not. He offered me 500 of them, you know. but I have not laid out above 250 of them. So 200 I left there in my escritoire, because I shall go again for a fortnight or so before winter, and 200 I have brought with me, and I have money, I know not what, in 3 places here, the account of which is my pocket book in my library. You have made some little presents, Pamela, to my servants there on our nuptials, and these 200 I have brought up. I will put it into your disposal, that with some of them you shall do here as you did there. I am ashamed, good sir, said I, to be so costly and so worthless. Pray, my dear, replied he, say not a word of that. Said Mr. Longman, why, madam, with money and stocks and one thing and another, his honour could buy half the gentlemen around him. He wants not money, and lays up every year, and it would have been pity but his honour should have wedded just as he has. Very true, Longman, said my master, and pulling out his purse, said, tell out, my dear, 200 guineas, and give me the rest. I did, sir. Now, said he, take them yourself for the purposes I mentioned. But, Mr. Longman, do you before sunset bring my dear girl 50 pounds, which is her due this day by my promise, and every 3 months from this day pay her 50 pounds, which will be 200 pounds per annum. And this is for her to lay out at her own discretion, and without account, in such way as shall derive a blessing upon us all. For she was my mother's almoner, and shall be mine, and her own too. I'll go for it this instant, said Mr. Longman. When he was done, I looked upon my dear generous master, and on Mrs. Jervis, and he gave me a nod of assent, and I took 20 guineas, and said, Dear Mrs. Jervis, accept of this, which is no more than my generous master ordered me to present to Mrs. Jewkes, for a pair of gloves on my happy nuptials. And so you, who are much better entitled to them by the love I bear you, must not refuse them. Said she, Mrs. Jewkes was on the spot, madam, at the happy time. Yes, said my master, but Pamela would have rejoiced to have had you there instead of her. That I should, sir, replied I, or instead of anybody, excepting my own mother. She gratefully accepted them, and thanked us both. But I don't know what she should thank me for I was not worth a fourth of them myself. I'll have you, my dear, said he, in some handsome manner, as you know how, oblige Longman to accept of a like present. Mr. Longman returned from his office, and brought me the 50 pounds, saying, I have entered this new article with great pleasure. To my lady 50 pounds, to be paid the same sum quarterly. Oh, sir, said I, what will become of me, to be so poor in myself, and so rich in your bounty? It is a shame to take all that your profuse goodness would heap upon me thus. But indeed it shall not be without account. Make no words, my dear, said he. Are you not my wife? And have I not endowed you with my goods? And hitherto this is a very small part. Mr. Longman, said I, and Mrs. Jervis, you both see how I am even oppressed with unreturnable obligations. God bless the donor, and the receiver too, said Mr. Longman. I am sure they will bring back good interest, for, madam, you have a bountiful heart, and I have seen the pleasure you used to take to dispense my late lady's alms and donations. I'll warrant, Mr. Longman, said I, notwithstanding you are so willing to have me take large sums for nothing at all, I should affront you, if I asked you to accept from me a pair of gloves only on account of my happy nuptials. He seemed not readily to know how to answer, and my master said, If Longman refuse you, my dear, he may be said to refuse your first favour. On that I put 20 guineas in his hand, but he insisted upon it that he would take but 5. I said, I must desire you to oblige me, Mr. Longman, or I shall think I have affronted you. Well, if I must, said he, I know what I know. What is that, Mr. Longman? Said I. Why, madam, I will not lay it out till my young master's birthday, which I hope will be within this 12-month. Not expecting anything like this from the old gentleman, I looked at my master, and then blushed so, I could not hold up my head. Charmingly said, Longman, said my master, and clasped me in his arms. Oh, my dear life, God send it may be so. You have quite delighted me, Longman, though I durst not have said such a thing for the world. Madam, said the old gentleman, I beg your pardon. I hope no offence, but I'd speak it 10 times in a breath to have it so. Take it how you please, as long as my good master takes it so well. Mrs. Jervis, said my master, this is an over-nice dear creature. You don't know what a life I have had with her, even on this side matrimony. Said Mrs. Jervis, I think Mr. Longman says very well. I'm sure I shall hope for it too. Mr. Longman, who had struck me of a heap, withdrawing soon after, my master said, Why, my dear, you can't look up. The old man said nothing shocking. I did not expect it, though, from him, said I. I was not aware but of some innocent pleasantry. Why, so it was, said he, both innocent and pleasant, and I won't forgive you if you don't say as he says. Come, speak before Mrs. Jervis. May everything happen, sir, that will give you delight. That's my dearest love, said he, and kissed me with great tenderness. When the servants had dined, I desired to see the maidens, and all 4 came up together. You are welcome home, madam, said Rachel. We rejoice all to see you here, and more to see you, our lady. Oh, my good acquaintances, said I joy to see you. How do you do, Rachel? How do you all do? And I took each of them by the hand, and could have kissed them. For, said I to myself, I kissed you all last time I saw you in sorrow. Why should I not kiss you all with joy? But I forbore, in honour of their master's presence. They seemed quite transported with me, and my good master was pleased with the scene. See here, my lasses, said he to your mistress. I need not bid you respect her, for you always loved her, and she'll have it as much in her power as inclination to be kind to the deserving. Indeed, said I shall always be a kind friend to you, and your dear master has ordered me to give each of you this, that you may rejoice with me on my happiness. And so I gave them 5 guineas apiece, and said, God bless you every one. I am overjoyed to see you. And they withdrew with the greatest gratitude and pleasure, praying for us both. I turned to my dear master. 'Tis to you, dear sir, said I, next to God, who put it into your generous heart, that all my happiness is owing, that my mind thus overflows with joy and gratitude. And I would have kissed his hand, but he clasped me in his arms, and said, You deserve it, my dear, you deserve it all. Mrs. Jervis came in. Said she, I have seen a very affecting sight. You have made your maidens quite happy, madam, with your kindness and condescension. I saw them all 4 as I came by the hall door, just got up from their knees, praising and praying for you both. Dear good bodies, said I, and did Jane pray too? May their prayers be returned upon themselves, I say. My master sent for Jonathan, and I held up all the fingers of my 2 hands, and my master giving a nod of approbation as he came in, I said, Well, Mr. Jonathan, I could not be satisfied without seeing you in form, as it were, and thanking you for all your past good will to me. You'll accept of that up for a pair of gloves on this happy occasion. And I gave him 10 guineas, and took his honest hand between both mine. God bless you, said I, with your silver hairs, so like my dear father. I shall always value such a good old servant of the best of masters. And he said, Oh, such goodness, such kind words! It is a balm to my heart. Blessed be God, I have lived to this day. And his eyes swam in tears, and he withdrew. My dear, said my master, you make every one happy. Oh, sir, said I, 'tis you, 'tis you. And let my grateful heart always spring to my lips to acknowledge the blessings you heap upon me. Then in came Harry and Isaac and Benjamin and the 2 grooms of this house, and Arthur the gardener, for my dear master had ordered them by Mrs. Jervis thus to be marshalled out. And he said, Where's John? Poor John was ashamed, and did not come in till he heard himself called for. I said to them, How do you do, my old friends and fellow servants? I am glad to see you all. My master said, I have given you a mistress, my lads, that is the joy of my heart. You see her goodness and condescension. Let your respect to her be but answerable, and she'll be proportionately as great a blessing to you all as she is to me. Harry said, In the name of all your servants, sir, I bless your honour and your good lady, and it be all our studies to deserve her ladyship's favours as well as your honours. And so I gave every one 5 guineas, to rejoice, as I said, in my happiness. When I came to John, I said, I saw you before, John, but I again tell you, I am glad to see you. He said he was quite ashamed and confounded. Oh, said I, forget everything that's past, John. Your dear good master will, and so will I. For God has wonderfully brought about all these things by the very means I once thought most grievous. Let us therefore look forward and be only ashamed to commit faults for the time to come, for they may not always be attended with like happy consequences. Arthur, said my master, I have brought you a mistress that is a great gardener. She'll show you a new way to plant beans, and never anybody had such a hand at improving a sunflower as she. Oh, sir, said I, but a little abashed. All my improvements in every kind of thing are owing to you, I'm sure. And so I think I was even with the dear man, and yet appeared grateful before his servants. They withdrew, blessing us both, as the rest had done. And then came in the postilion and 2 helpers, for my master has both here and at Lincolnshire fine hunting horses, and it is the chief sport he takes delight in, as also the scullion boy. And I said, How do all of you? And how dost do, Tommy? I hope you're very good. Here your dear master has ordered you something apiece in honour of me. And my master holding 3 fingers to me, I gave the postilion and helpers 3 guineas each, and the little boy 2, and bid him let his poor mother lay it out for he must not spend it idly. Mr. Colbrand, Abraham, and Thomas I had before presented at t'other house. And when they are all gone but Mrs. Jervis, I said, And now, dearest sir, permit me on my knees thus to bless you and pray for you. And oh, may God crown you with the length of days and increase of honour, and may your happy, happy Pamela, by her grateful heart, appear always worthy in your dear eyes, though she cannot be so in her own, nor those of any others. Mrs. Jervis, said my master, you see the excellence of this sweet creature. And when I tell you that the charms of her person, all lovely as she is, bind me not so strongly to her as the graces of her mind, congratulate me, that my happiness is built on so stable a basis. Indeed, I do most sincerely, sir, said she. This is a happy day for me. I stepped into the library while he was thus pouring out his kindness for me to Mrs. Jervis, and blessed God there on my knees, for the difference I now found to what I had once known in it. And when I have done the same thing in the first scene of my fears, the once frightful summer house, I shall have gone through most of my distressful scene with gratitude, but shall never forbear thanking God in my mind for his goodness to me in every one. Mrs. Jervis, I find, had whispered him what I had done above, and he saw me upon my knees with my back towards him, unknown to me, but softly put to the door again, as he had opened it a little way. And I said, not knowing that he had seen me, You have some charming pictures here, sir. Yes, said he, my dear life, so I have, but none so equal to that which your piety affords me. And may the God you delight to serve bless more and more, my dear angel. Sir, said I, you are all goodness. I hope, replied he, after your sweet example, I shall be better and better. Do you think, my dear father and mother, there was ever so happy a creature as I? To be sure, it would be very ungrateful to think with uneasiness, or anything but compassion, of poor Miss Sally Godfrey. He ordered Jonathan to let the evening be passed merrily but wisely, as he said, with what every one liked, whether wine or October. He was pleased afterwards to lead me upstairs, and gave me possession of my lady's dressing-room and cabinet, and her fine repeating watch and equipage, and, in short, of a complete set of diamonds that were his good mother's, as also of the 2 pair of diamond earrings, the 2 diamond rings, and diamond necklace he mentioned in his naughty articles, which her ladyship intended for presents to Miss Tomlins, a rich heiress, that was proposed for his wife, when he was just come from his travels, but which went off after all was agreed upon both the friend's side, because he approved not her conversation, and she had, as he told his mother, too masculine an air, and he never could be brought to see her but once, though the lady liked him very well. He presented me also with her ladyship's books, pictures, linen, lace, etc., that were in her apartments, and bid me call those apartments mine. O give me, my good God, humility and gratitude. Section 31.